3000.
What is doing? My name's Maloney. This is the 3000 podcast. I'm joined today by Ghetto, aka the Natural One, aka Ra. Thanks for coming, man.
Good to see you, Maloney. How are you?
I'm good, mate. You've probably got the most amount of props I've ever seen, which is exciting because it's just like a little treasure trove of stuff you've brought with you.
Yeah, that's kind of good. I kind of thought I'd bring a bit of a museum, so to speak, an installation of sorts. And I guess it helps the timeline, it helps the history, and helps to represent.
Yeah. And so the goggles is one thing that you're known for. The dolphin torch also?
Yeah, the dolphin torch as well. So I used to wear... I'll show you here. Prop number one. I was famous for wearing, like, these are Air Force sprayer suits.
Yep.
Like what you might call a boiler suit.
Yep.
So I used to wear the white boiler suits with the goggles and an actual gas mask.
Uh-huh.
And then I'd have the dolphin torch strapped to my hand. And I'd kind of become like the human dancing laser show, so to speak.
Okay.
The gas mask was actually an important thing. Also, it was a face mask. No reference to COVID, of course. And that was because... I didn't smoke cigarettes and stuff, but the smoke machine used to actually make me really sick.
Uh-huh.
So the whole mask thing and the gas mask thing came about because I didn't want to feel sick from all the smoke machine.
Due to necessity.
Yeah.
But people thought it was a prop.
Yeah, because people thought it was a prop. Exactly. It was actually so I could breathe.
Yeah.
But and these were great. $10 Army disposal store. Of course, halfway through the rave, maybe near the end, the thing would be torn apart, so to speak. So, I'd buy a new one each week and off I go. But I guess with all my sort of props or what I wear, there's always a connection. So, graphite spray painter, spraying suit, white boiler suits, very techno, very industrial, very, radioactive.
Uh-huh.
And the goggles, again, the same thing. So, I'm a mad skier and a snowboarder.
Right.
But also, B-boy things, ski goggles. Anyone, remembers Beat Street or anything like that too, going out in winter. And, it's a real sort of iconic, scheme and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And I guess, it snows everywhere I go. So I got to get through the blizzard. So, yeah.
Fuck yeah, man. All right. So the rave stuff is super interesting. And I know that you would have probably met a lot of different people on your journey, but it started with graph. A lot of your story starts with graph. How did you get involved in hip hop in the early 80s, man?
Yeah. So I'll give you context. So I had an older brother, 6 years older. He was a Sandy boy and a West Side Sharp. Mm-hmm. So he used to, I guess, what you'd do, bogan tagging. He used to do a lot of the tagging with Tubby, Raffles and Zoltan.
Can I ask a question, though?
Yep.
West Side and Sandy seem to be different.
Yeah, but this West Side Sharps and Sandy boys were kind of linked.
Okay.
Because then you had the other rivals like the Lebanese Tigers and, the different crew. You had the Oakley Wogs and stuff as well. I mean, there was many more, of course. But yeah, a lot of people that were West Side Sharps were also Sandy boys and vice versa.
So was that West Side of Melbourne or West Side of...
Yeah, it's West Side Melbourne.
Okay,
yeah,
seems geographically a long way away.
Yeah, but it's about linking up and where you go and who you hang with. And I guess, back then it was about people flexing and being tough, so to speak. That was the culture.
Yep.
A lot of the early riders sort of came from that culture or knew that culture, or maybe they were rude boys or something else instead.
Yeah, so the rude boy
Skinheads.
thing is sort of like, the punk movement before punk sort of thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, rude boy first. So that's all like the Manchester thing and all that sort of stuff too. And other areas, of course. And that, had the reggae ska influence, and that's kind of how that came about.
Yep.
And I guess it's probably a little bit post-mods as well.
Uh-huh.
Because rude boys look similar in some ways to mods as well, in some ways. So,
in some ways, yeah. Because it is sort of a subculture that gets overlooked a bit, isn't it? It gets sort of forgotten a little bit.
Totally. Well, look, I'd truly say like the bogan culture, or whatever you want to call it, that whole West Side Sharp culture, that was uniquely Melbourne. It was uniquely Australian. Like, I know other cultures had something similar, like a rude boy or something, but... the rat tail thing and all of that, the West Coast tops, the cut-off tops and all that business, the special Sharpie dance, that was uniquely Melbourne and Australia. And so that's something we can truly say as a culture and as a country, that's our own.
Yeah. But it is that kind of went at loggerheads with the hip-hop movement as well, didn't it?
Yeah, a little bit of crossover. Look, as you know, I know a long time ago, Ransom and Perks did a book with all the battle jackets. Mm-hmm. So they did a book on like the whole sort of, Sharpie battle jackets and stuff. And again, dare I say it, I believe Murder was a bit of a rude boy really as well. back in his time. I know he sort of like reggae and ska more and stuff too, but just how he dressed too, the pointy shoes, the black jeans, the t-shirt.
He says he's goth, sort of.
Yeah,
goth.
well, goth. Yeah, I'd say he was goth too, but a little bit of both in a way. But yeah, definitely much so. But Murder definitely wasn't b-boy at all. He wasn't into hip hop music and any of that sort of stuff. I guess you could say about Les Baker too, like GS38 and stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit. It came from a little bit earlier, a little bit different time.
Yep. Like you said, the bogan tags. That
Yeah,
sort of thing. It was claiming your territory, sort of, wasn't it?
Yeah, of course it was. It was still graphing away. They were the first to do the roller stuff. So way before Ha and people like that,
Yep.
it was Tubby, Raffles and Zoltan. And then also my older brother is kind of like the fourth person. There were others too, of course. And then you had all, I guess, the breakdancing graffiti crews.
Yep.
Because that's, a lot of the early graph crews, besides, of course, the Future Four, which is Murder, Prime, Disguise and Les Baker, GS38. The rest, I guess, were more strictly breakdancers that were also graphers.
Uh-huh.
And, you had the Rocksteady crew thing and they toured and all that sort of business. And that gave us the push and, Subway art coming out as well. And video stuff, certain songs, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, for sure. So in the early 80s, your brother's 6 years older. So he's out doing the roller tags and stuff.
Yep.
And you're seeing this hip-hop culture on TV and your brother's kind of in it a little bit.
Yeah, he's in a little bit. And, he knew Disguise in his young years and stuff too. Like, he wasn't a writer, but because there's party scenes and other scenes as well. And I guess there's drug scenes and stuff too. So he knew some of those key people and others in the USA crew and, just a few other people here and there. And I guess I knew people like Used To. So Used To is a really old school writer as well. So again, I just knew him through like party scene, early DJing stuff and all of that. So, but yeah, I first started at the start of grade 5, which would have been 84.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got my first tag thanks to my brother who said, look, you need a tag. And it was red rattlers and blue trains. You could leave the doors open non-stop. You could hang out the train. I mean, I wasn't a seat slasher, but that was really big too.
Just destruction.
Yeah, but I was given a tag and I ran with it. Mm-hmm. And that's how it got started for me.
Can you tell us what the tag was?
Yeah, Styx.
Okay.
So Styx is in the River Hades, or the famous crossing of the underworld. Mm-hmm. So STYX.
Uh-huh.
And because my older brother also was into a lot of metal and stuff. So I guess he helped me kind of pick the name. Like, you should have Styx. It's like the underworld, crossing river to the other side, so to speak.
It's a very abrupt and aggressive bunch of letters together.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, well, yeah, STYs and X's, and you had a few people with X's back then. I mean, just like when G's became really popular in the 90s. But yeah, STY and X are really unusual letters, and yeah, not everyone would know what it means as well. Uh-huh. That's not like Turbo or Gizmo or I guess some of the other sort of early breakdancing sort of tags that people had.
Yeah, and that does show that as much as graffiti became very hip hop in the early days, it was rock and roll as well.
Yeah, of course it was 100%. It's a bit like if you go back to like your Blades and all of that, there wasn't hip hop then. They were Grand Funk Railroad. They were Black Sabbath. They were all sorts of other music, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's funk, soul, rock, metal, whatever, right, or early metal. So that's, the seed of, when people talk about hip-hop, graphing, whatever, the seed of graffiti, which kind of predates hip-hop, mm-hmm. right? If you want to go back to Cornbread and, Taki, Julio, 161, and, people before that, but, around that sort of 69 to 73 period,
there was people
right?
before Cornbread?
Oh, well, Cornbread's kind of goes down as the first, right? But let's just sort of peg it from 69 onwards and creeping in 70 onwards, right? Whether you're in Philly or New York or whatever, right? We can talk about Egyptians as well and hieroglyphics and, cave paintings and all sorts of stuff,
Indigenous
right?
cave paintings here.
Yeah, of course, exactly. Like leaving a mark, telling a story, painting a picture. It's all the same essence, really, like dancing around a fire. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just one of the oldest things that we do as humans. Mm-hmm. So anyway, if you look at early, sort of New York scene as well, they didn't have hip-hop music yet. The official founding date of hip-hop, 73, the Block Party, Cool Herc, Bambaataa, Universal Zulu Nation, all that sort of stuff.
Playing the breaks, doing the merry-go-round.
Yeah. And then, even like DJs like Pete Jones before that, in London from 69 onwards and, modifying DJ mixes and all that sort of stuff. We're kind of looking at that period, 69, 73, hip-hop 73, and then hip-hop on wax later on. If you want to count the Fatback Band or, you want to count, Rapper's Delight, or you want to count Grandmaster Flash and the Mention of Wheels of Steel, or Blondie's Rapture. We can go on and on and on and on. James Brown as well, of course, et cetera, et cetera.
It's important for people to know where it comes from, though.
Yeah, well, it's context and seed. So I'm really big on seed and the root, because seeds are kind of like trigger points, because no matter how far something expands, the seed will always be in something. It's a bit like the truth is always in something. If something becomes more commercial, more mainstream later on, or gets watered down, or steers to other paths, or fractures or splinters into 20, 30 different genres or groups or styles, or whatever tangents or hybrids, the seed will always be in there. It's a bit like the truth. The truth's even in a lie.
Okay.
So
break that down for me. That's interesting.
So, well, the thing about a lie is, for a lie to be a lie, then there has to be some truth.
Okay.
It's a bit like darkness can't survive without light in a way. Not that I'm here to talk about dualities.
Yeah.
Because, dualities are a fracture in its own right. We could get deeper about that, but that's, really not the time and place. But just because it's like when you're born, the essence of you when you were born, your parents fucked you, created, right? There's always something in you, your essence, no matter how you change, what jobs you do, partners, lovers, doing this, doing that. I used to be this, I used to be that, whatever. I think there's always an essence of you, or a nature of you that carries through. Mm-hmm. Even if some people try and hide it, dismiss it, ignore it, I just think people's nature always bubbles up. Uh-huh. And that's what I guess I kind of like to say about a seed as well.
Yep.
I mean, the way I look at graph is impoverished people looking for an outlet in a pretty bleak environment, in pretty bleak circumstances, seeing the haves and the has-nots, obviously coming from maybe other backgrounds and cultures that are very expressive, whether they're, black cultures, Latino cultures, European, whatever, right? And of course there's white kids too. But I just think, the fundamental thing for humans is to connect, or to love and be loved, or to express themselves. That's our innate drive, no matter in which way we do it. And I just think, okay, those that have the privilege, same with music. I can get piano lessons, I can do this, I can go to art school, I can study art school, I can buy my canvases, I can have gallery connections. Or I'm a kid who's not having those opportunities or those networks or privileges. I'm going to rack some paint, and I'm going to fucking paint the streets, and I'm going to paint some trains, because I want to express myself. And I don't want to have to do it in a formal structure. I don't want to have to find a gallery. I don't want to have money raised. I don't want sponsors. I don't want any of that. So, again, just to cite Jermaine Green, it's always a comment that's stuck in my head. She made the comment probably around 2010, 2012. She said, and this is weird coming from her, graffiti is probably the most honest form of art that we have in the modern world at this time. Mm-hmm. And it's probably the only truly authentic art that we've had since 1969, 1973. And that's a big call from her. She's a feminist, started the feminist movement and all of that. I guess she studies a lot of sociology and human behavior and stuff as well, and maybe gender differences or whatever. But that was an interesting comment coming from her once when she said that on radio.
Yep.
And I guess
I've got to back it up though. It's true.
Yeah, it's true. Because look, I said, so one thing I love about graffiti, a lot of writers say, I write for myself. I don't care if anyone sees it. I don't care what anyone thinks. It's all about me. I get it, right? But graph also, it's a public service as well. It's like, you can go and acquire the tools you need, however you choose to acquire them, right? Back in the day, you racked your paint. It's too expensive. You couldn't afford it. Maybe you just wanted to go racking anyway. It's fucking fun, right? Yeah. So passage of rights, whatever, earn your stripes. So the point is, so firstly, you're getting your paint and your tools on your own terms. Then you choose where you want to paint and when you want to paint. That's freedom. And you're not doing it for sponsors, to sell the work, for any prestige, to build a career. I mean, you might be building respect and rep, right?
There's a bit of ego in there.
Yeah, of course there's ego and it might have roll off. But just from a pure point of view, so I've had writer friends that have gone to jail, right? Done time, on holiday, whatever you want to call it. So the point is, one of the first things they always used to get told by crims in jail was, you shouldn't be here. You're not a criminal. You're not one of us. We steal things for gain, or we hurt people out of respect, or we hurt them for leverage or for torture or kidnapping, or whatever, right? But a lot of it's motivated for gain in some way, even if it's gain of holding down your respect, gain of principles, gain of they broke the rules, gain of extortion, or gain of, appropriating funds, property, etc., right, for your own gain. It's a business enterprise of sorts, right? I know some people are more pathological and they're driven, or maybe a serial killer is as well. That's slightly exceptions. But the average criminal, there's some sort of business deal going on or some sort of gain, right? An appropriation of sorts. Graffiti, it's like, they used to say, you're out there doing something for the love. You don't get paid for it. You don't get anything for it. You're risking a lot by stealing the paint, breaking the law, getting caught, especially when the penalties got a bit harsher later on come the start of the 1990s. And so it's like, a lot of criminals used to look at a lot of riders sideways, besides riders, of course, that stole cars, dealt drugs, and then there's lots of, that held people up, that stabbed people, that bashed people, used guns, whatever. There's lots of riders that were very criminal as well. Mm-hmm. And there's also artistic style riders, just like there's bombers and there's pieces, right? Or there's also all-rounders, right? But just, that was something that always struck me when the criminals used to walk up to a lot of riders going to me, you shouldn't be here. You aren't really one of us. Like, you don't have the same drive or mechanisms or mechanics that we have to do what we do, and you're not doing it for the same sort of rewards. Mm-hmm. You're risking a lot for what they see as nothing.
No. I've had people that I know that have been to prison have said, in prison, graffiti riders are just, they're sort of the lowest down the pecking order.
Yeah.
They don't have the respect because they haven't done that's a generalisation. Yeah. But if you are there and you're a non-violent offender who does that, then they don't respect you.
Yeah, because they don't respect you. They don't get you. And again, the systems put you in there. Like, why are you here? And you're exactly right. Like, most criminals I know have said, what the fuck are you doing here? You aren't one of us. You shouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. And you're not really a criminal. You're not really in crime. Besides, of course, riders that are also criminals. Or people that are criminals and sometimes riders. Because there's a lot of people that get into riding that just love crime. And riding's just another side gig. But really, they're criminals.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think it was Hayes when he was on this podcast. He said, there's no other subcultures that orbits around criminal society than graffiti without fully going in it, and it's pretty true.
100% right. Like that's really well spoken by Hayes, and I couldn't agree with that more.
I think it was Hayes. Hopefully it was,
Yep. But Hayes should know, he came up around Peanut and all those guys, and a lot of them were hardened guys, and a lot of them also did serious shit, and, we could talk about, carpet laying and all sorts of stuff, but the bottom line is, he's from Dandy too, in that area.
Yep.
So, they saw a lot of people even in their own crew do time and get put away. So
yeah, and it's all part of it. So let's talk about, was breaking or was graffiti, what was your entry? At grade 5, it was more...
Yeah, it was more graph.
Right.
Because I knew breaking, every kid was doing a bit of breaking. You could do a duck dive and all that. I could do some up rocking and stuff. Maybe some of, the freeze movements and things like that. I could do a couple of power moves as well. But it was probably the grass side of thing more because of my older brother. That's why.
Right. Okay. And so Subway Art's come out at this stage because it's 84.
Yeah, it's 84 exactly. So it's just come out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've got a Bible to look at and something
of course,
to sort of...
exactly. Yeah. We all have the Bible, of course. So yeah, but I was lucky too. I got books like Getting Up really early as well. So Getting Up was the silver book, the written ones. It was just written stories.
Wow. Okay.
And
it helps having an older brother.
Yeah, because it absolutely helped. Look, I grew up fast. I grew up quick. I won't. Lace it in any other way. Mm-hmm. I was into a whole lot of shit way faster than most kids were my age. I was exposed to a lot of stuff and a wide variety of stuff. Mm-hmm. So he was heavily into music and stuff as well. He was heavily into drugs too. So and crime and stuff as well. So you get exposed to all of that too. But I guess, the cool kids are always doing the cool things. Mm-hmm. And that rubs off. Then he's got his own friends too that you meet that come over to the house, whatever, and they're all doing their own cool shit and different shit too.
Yep.
And you kind of learn. But I think back then too, in our generation, the whole day was parents said, come home when the lights turn on. Mm-hmm. Right? Anyone knows what that means. When the street lights come on, it's time to come home and your dinner might be ready or whatever your setup is, right? And so we used to explore. Like I remember breaking into abandoned factories, car lots, squat houses, whatever.
What area are you in? What area is this?
Yeah, so I grew up in Paran.
Right, yep.
Yep, so Paran. So
and there's a lot more industrial back then.
Yeah, way industrial, migrant family stuff. Like my father was a migrant. Mm-hmm. He grew up in World War II in Poland in the ghetto in World War II.
Yep.
Hence, that's why my tag's ghetto because that's my roots. That's where I'm from. So, and then because I had a lot of Greeks around me as well, a lot of Italians around me, some Turkish kids and stuff too, in that area at that time.
Yep.
But like kids, you had friends everywhere in all suburbs, and you travel around and all that sort of stuff. But kids used to explore, used to see, like I remember doing, like I actually learnt this off Barthy. So Barthy and I kind of knew each other, but not know each other. But he used to do the same paper rounds that I used to do when I was a young kid.
Right.
So he was a little bit older than me. So I started my paper rounds when I was 6 years old.
Wow.
Hence having an older brother because he was already doing paper rounds.
Shit,
Yeah, so I had 3 paper rounds at age 6 and then, did the other stuff. But I always remember seeing Barthy and then other people like Stewie Bennett from Bennett's gym and stuff. His dad was a very famous bodybuilder and stuff. It's a very famous gym in Paran. Bit of a hangout as well for people that kind of know. And anyway, so I saw Barthy what he was doing, hanging out with Birdie, whose name Rock and all those other guys, right? And of course, George as well, I'd now some others. But I always saw him and, sometimes before the paper and I saw him like bombing the train station or something. And so I used to see him sometimes doing tricks like, getting the fallout on the signals. You could make the boom gates come down sooner or later and things like that. And then we learnt little tricks like, putting shotgun shells on the train tracks and stealing the detonator packets and putting them on the train tracks too and all that sort of stuff. So these are young things you just learn.
Primary school stuff.
Yeah, primary school stuff that you learn when you're a little kid and just exploring and shit.
Yeah.
And so I guess so that already in my nature before graph, I'm used to getting into buildings, exploring factories, warehouses, walking the train line, and just kind of being comfortable sort of exploring.
Yeah, and you would see around Paran, you would definitely see a lot of early pieces that would have been, the early
The war piece,
years. Yeah.
that war piece, that was a dope piece. Just past Paran Station,
Yep.
right near where the style machine piece is.
Yep.
Because it's not there now, but that had an amazing character as well. Of course, a face. Lettering was really good, like really Yorkie style. And of course, the other piece right at Paran Station was the Astro Snuff piece by Astro 27, which is Gaza, of course, Disguise, and the Snuff piece as well, which he actually did both pieces.
Uh-huh.
So they had the city background and all that sort of stuff. And I remember too at the milk bars, like back then, 83, 84, you could get the little sticker packs. So you bought the chewing gum and it came with 10 or 15 breakdancing and graffiti stickers. So from New York and stuff, of course. But not many people remember these. I mean, because a lot of older riders will. But again, so you got your little packet. But yeah, inside was like 10 to 15 little mini stickers of graffiti pieces.
Right. Characters and shit.
Yeah, on characters, on boards, on walls, whatever, right? Then also some photos of breakdancers and, the troops, like the posses in their tracksuits and all that sort of stuff. And so you got to see more about graph in that sort of way too as well. And because, Frankston line, Danny line, Sandy line, of course, the St Kilda line was still around then too when I was younger.
Yep.
So because, Ransom, of course, Murder and all of that too, and Les Baker like that, a lot of people on the St Kilda line. But, you had FCB. I mean, I can go on about other crews as well. I think there was TMM from memory and, DSA and FMC were really early as well and stuff too. And USA and of course the Future 4 before that and blah blah blah.
A lot, yeah. I've heard stories from other people that at Elmer Park there used to be sort of break battles and that sort of thing that would happen.
Yep, that's right, of course. And at the Marble as well. The Marble came a touch later. Yeah, at the Marble as well, of course, in the city, and of course the City Square as well, where Central Station Records used to be, and then the Youth Services building too, run by Chris Everett as well, because Chris Everett was a big advocate and I guess catalyst for spreading legal graffiti and just the presence of graffiti. So he arranged all the building sites for the BLF. So King Street Kings. So around the big buildings, like the enormous one, the King Street one was the famous one. It went for an entire block. And then of course you had there was another one up on Collins Street too. There's another big famous one.
Is this mid-80s?
Yeah, this is mid-80s now. Yeah, it's the mid-80s. And of course, just before, as you'd know, like through Motor and Jewel and everyone else too, the Gasworks.
Yep.
So the Gasworks was a big illegal spot that used to get painted, which then of course got known about later on and all that sort of stuff too. And
I was in Port Melbourne and I'd ride my bike there in the late 80s and just look at all the pieces. And,
exactly. It was before the abattoirs, which was the Burnley abattoirs, of course, a famous one. There was the Gasworks.
Yep.
So the newer generations that sort of came up 86 onwards, 87, 88, they mightn't have known about Gasworks, that when the abattoirs came into place, and of course, who painted the abattoirs first? Ransom, Murder, Jewel. Who knew about the Gasworks? Because they'd painted the Gasworks.
Yep.
So and of course, Prime used to live just around the corner from there at Burnley Station as well. So, it was kind of their hood, USA hood anyway as well. And the point is, But, it took someone that knew the gasworks to create another gasworks, which was the Burnley and the abattoirs, of course.
For sure. So had you developed the Ghetto name by this stage, or are you still doing sticks?
Yeah, no. So after sticks, it became Warp. Warp. So
Which is so different because that's such a curvy, besides the, aggressive...
So what is similar in a way, I guess TYX are all straight lines and crosses, Y and X are quite similar, but look at Warp. WA are all straight line peak points, and then R and P around it.
Okay.
So I've split my first two letters one way and my last two letters the other way. And, TYX is more connected than an S, but I've got a round at the start and then more straights at the end. But Warp, I guess, was the first time I'm really choosing my own tag for me.
Okay.
I guess that warping things, warping dimensions, something's a bit warped or a bit skew or a little bit different.
Does that come in the same sort of time as your drug sort of, experimentation kicks off?
So Warp came, so 84, 85, 84 and a little bit of 85 is sticks, and then 85, like probably by third of the way through 85, and then all of 86, it's Warp. And then 87, it changes again. So the reason why that is, I had a kid at school in my class. His name was Pete, and he had a brother as well. And so he was in DMA. He wrote Hoax. So early days, he was Glennie line, and I used to hang out on the Glennie line a lot as well and stuff, so proximity. So he kind of really got me into piecing and style. So I knew about bombing and stuff. I saw the pieces that come early grade 6, so that's 85.
Yep.
That's when I chose my own tag and started piecing and sketching and all that sort of stuff. And it was thanks to him. And he knew Yuri well at Prime, and he knew even New and that was starting then, and Tame was starting. So he knew Senna and all those sort of guys. So he knew a lot of the King Riders. So that's how sort of on the periphery I got to meet some of them as well. And I guess in my early days too, my brother knowing Gazza too, but also I knew another person who was a family friend. So his name was Boxman. So Boxman and Catman were famous. They are like your Keith Harrings of Melbourne. And they actually hosted Keith Haring, and Keith Haring stayed with them for quite a long time when he came and painted, Collingwood Tech and the city and everywhere else. He even actually painted Colin's car at the time.
Right.
So he was very privileged and lucky to do all that.
Wow.
So Boxman and Catman, and they're on the show The Factory and all that, if you remember that, Ransom and Acid and Murder and Paris and Peril.
I was young then, but
and all that on The Factory. So the bottom line is they were doing all these characters, but they were gutsy, a bit more like Modern Graph now. So they did all the yellow pillars at all the tram stops. The yellow things that rise up.
Right here.
Yeah, exactly. One of those. Exactly. You got it in one. So they would bum all of them, and then the signage that went up.
Yep.
And also they would do a lot of the big empty billboards. So if the bills were getting stripped before the new ones came up, like Keith Haring, they do these enormous, so above service stations on the train line, where all the concert posters used to go up, so anywhere in the city, but of course a lot up high ones. So that, that being a family friend, again, I was exposed to him in an early day, and of course he was writing a lot with Murder and Taxi and Ransom and all those guys too. So, Murder used to hang out. In fact, he had a really, Boxman Colin, he had a really famous warehouse, real New York loft styles. That was just on the corner of High Street and Chapel Street.
And it was what a spot.
Top level, yeah. So and I think Konstanty Zikos was there too, if you remember him too and stuff.
Jay definitely talks about him.
Yeah, exactly. So he was a major influence, and they were all studying nearby, like TAFE Uni or the Uni TAFE, whatever, and they were all going to arts college. So those are sort of arts were quite learned, but also taking Graffin styles further, because I had that arts college background and that intelligence and knowledge about just art movement styles and exploring colour form more and shapes and just whatever else, right? And so knowing Colin too was a big help, and being a good family friend of ours and stuff. And my dad actually had to represent him quite a few times in court as well and stuff, and try and reduce his sentences and stuff as well. So I had that exposure to as a really young to, and him coming around, but also, Colin mentored me a lot. He taught me about later on just for magazine overlays or getting T-shirts printed. He taught me about doing, the transparency overlays. So your green's on one sheet, your red's on another sheet, your blue's on another, then your final outline. So I learned how to sketch up and draw in layers, and then you lay them on top, because when you print it in the separation presses, CMYK, etc. You have to learn how the colour separations work. So
Similar to layers with a piece, though.
yeah, of course it's similar layers for a piece, but just helping make that step to then doing T-shirts later or doing stuff for magazines. And because later on I did a lot of graphic design work for about 10, 12 years and stuff like that. And, I saw, Murder in Disguise doing like the Las Vegas T-shirts too, and the stuff for Galaxy as well. So like these were all famous stores that I guess were originally, hip-hop b-boy stores in a way, which then also became part rave stores or rave wear or club wear as well, or acid house wear.
For sure.
So again, I looked at all my mentors coming up and I was exposed to all them soon enough and early as well. And then just, that was a bit like a sponge, and I always had an open mind for stuff as well.
Yep.
But it's about passion. I guess sometimes too, you just got to appreciate who's around you when you're coming up. And if, like everyone, dude, I eat, sleep, breathe graffiti like everyone else did. You call it, it's a cancer. It's an addiction. You can't stop doing it. But it truly is, and to quote Game from Sydney, and he's in the TV news thing that was done back in the 80s, he said, it's better than sex.
And that's how, and that it was. And it took, the people that got it really got it, but
Yep.
most people didn't get it, did they?
Yep.
They're like, what are you doing this for?
Yeah, but that was great because, in the earlier days, you probably had a core group of 200 core riders. And look, let's kick it off. We can kick it off from 1980, 81 when it was kind of really starting. But let's just say from that period to 86, maybe 85, there was truly a core group of about 200 riders that were underground, dedicated, committed, because there were other peripheries. And then because from 86 onwards, it exploded a lot more. But a bit like, I can draw a lot of parallels to the rave scene. You had this community thing, right? And the rave scene was similar. Very organic, very small in the start.
DIY.
DIY. So what people don't get is the punk scene is almost a carbon copy to the graph scene. Made their own flyers, dressed their own way, had their own words and language, stood for something. We're outside, fuck the system and outside of society, right?
And we don't want you in.
Yeah, and we don't want you in, and we don't care to have you in, right? By riders, for riders, a rider knows, right? It's the same with punks, right? Punk's not dead. So the point is, though, but that was something I learned quickly too, is the parallels of the whole DIY thing and doing it on your own terms, and even producing your own music or producing your own, breakdancing crew, or producing your own sketches and designs, and just doing everything on your terms, your way, grassroots, indie label.
For sure.
Style.
And a lot could be said about skateboard culture as well.
Yeah,
Very
of course.
similar.
Yeah, well, we can talk about skateboards later too. So yeah.
For sure.
But, and look, I was a big skater as well in the early days, and
Pran was the mecca then.
yeah, Pram was the mecca. So I was very lucky where I grew up, because remember, you had the clubbing culture where I grew up, you had the band scene where I was growing up, and when I used to all the paper rounds in the pubs as well when I was younger, you saw a lot of famous criminal identities in all the pubs. You saw a lot of famous footballers and stuff too. But I was doing the pub rounds from age 6 onwards as well. So I'm like a little kid. I used to get tips like nothing else, because the cute little kid comes in, and every time I take my break and play the penny, because everyone loved pennies back in the day, but they'd get the milk crates for me so I could stand and play the penny. And the milk crates will play an important part later on when I start talking about trains and stuff as well. But you'll just see how there's a thread, like a lot of things I appropriated from circumstance that happened on me in my life, but obviously left an impression. And I guess the milk crate thing too comes from your paper round. You didn't have a basket, whatever. You put you strung a wired up a milk crate on the front of your bike on your BMX.
Yep.
Then you'd put your newspapers in that. And same my basketball hoop too. I remember seeing the movie Trading Places a long time ago.
Yep.
I remember in a small snippet, about a 1 second snippet at the very start, and they go through the streets in New York. You see, in the Ghetto area, Brooklyn, wherever, these black guys are playing basketball, but they just wired up a milk crate to a street pole, and that's how they were playing hoops. So and of course, for records.
Yep.
That was the quintessential thing for any DJ. You carried your records in your milk crate.
Yeah. Man, milk crates, I've got some here in the studio. There's something that's just magical about them.
Yep.
And the ethos that you can take it and repurpose it for anything you want is just symbolic, man. It's just so sick.
It's like Lego. It's like Lego in a way. You could build beds with it. You can build tables with it. You could build ladders with it. I mean, people done all sorts of cool shit with milk crates. So yeah.
Yeah, do you remember the crate men that were around Melbourne?
Yeah, I remember the crate men, yeah,
I
of
tried to
course.
find the people that were behind that to get on top of them, see if they would come and do it. But they'd all gone their separate ways. But that was a cool movement in Melbourne.
Yeah, of course it was. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing too. Again, in Melbourne, because I guess with the Sharpie scene and all of that, you had a lot of, in the early punk scene too. When you talk about Ollie Olsen and Rowan S. Howard and people like that as well. But like, you had, like in graffiti too, Aussies, or particularly from Melbourne, it was all about your own style. And even the Kings who started the architects for Australia and Melbourne, like the Future Four, right? Like Les, Murder, Disguise, Prime. It was all about their own style. Like, there was some early Yorkie or New York influence in the beginning, but everyone broke away pretty quick to get their own style. And I guess the thing is too, Melbourne and Australia had their own paint. Like, we didn't have the Krylons and the Rust-Oleums and all of that stuff yet, right? And we never got all their brands anyway.
Got the Tucsons?
Yeah, got the Tucsons as well and stuff. And it goes, we can talk about a certain warehouse that was burned when a whole lot of paint was appropriated and got flooded. And I won't say who it is, but those that know who it was. And he generously gave a whole lot of that paint out to everyone else. So there'd be a whole lot of burners in Melbourne.
I heard that. There was all of a sudden, there was pinks and blues and all sorts of... Yeah,
and he hasn't been on your show yet.
Okay.
But you're trying to get him on your show.
Okay.
So anyway... But yeah, so the thing is, we had the shit nozzles, like the blue Dulax nozzles, like the white paper thin, kill rust nozzles and stuff like that, right? And budget paint and other paint. But you have to make do and learn, and we had unusual colours because of that as well, because a lot of the colours we had to pick one were painting a roof, painting a wooden chair, painting balustrades or a cast iron table. All the stuff that hardware stores were selling the paint for, of course.
Yep.
White Knight had a few better colours and stuff as well. And of course, Tucsons, of course, were flawless. And, I don't think I've ever smelled a better smell than Tucson paint.
People say that, yeah.
Oh, dude, it's the sweetest smell. You can smell it from like, I don't know, hundreds of metres away, maybe a couple hundred metres away. But just that smell when you smell it. And look, it coats, it's thick, it didn't drip, it didn't run. I mean, it was all the things that were good about paint later on now,
But they were small, though.
Yeah, they were small, dude, because they were shoe paint. Or for leather goods and shoes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, but good for bombing, hey?
Yeah. So when you start to get into your graph properly, do you go, do some track sides? There's lots of spots around. Do you want to just paint trains because that's what you see is happening in New York?
Yeah. So I remember I was already bombing trains because of my older brother.
Yep.
And I was already doing stuff on the train line, like roll-ups on the train line. And I guess what you call like a throw-up piece, which is more the break-dancing pieces, right?
Yep.
And one of my friends who didn't write for long, it was one of my closest friends' older brother, he wrote Turbo. I mean, I could say some other names that were very sort of breakdancing names and stuff, and I guess straight from some of the the movies or videos that came out about the culture. But I'd my tag then. I'd warp by then, so I was writing warp. But so we do like mini stuff on the line, I guess what I'd call like a throw-up piece more, or and I was still bombing and stuff. But definitely getting into a lot of throw-ups. And I guess going back to early 70s, simple fill, maybe some dots or a pattern or crosses on it or X's or something or stars in it, an outline, and maybe just a thin shadow or no shadow at all. So, starting with the basics like how most people start. But I'm starting to sketch a lot then. And come grade 7, I'm piecing.
Okay. On track sides?
Grade 7. I'm piecing on track sides. Yeah.
Right. And the yards are different then as well, aren't they?
Yeah, so very, very different. So I started early with Sabbath. So Sabbath and I started writing together. So of course a lot of people know who Sabbath is and stuff. So yeah. So besides knowing other writers as well, he was really one of the core writers I started with. Of course, another guy I started with as well, Broth, who I started an ADN crew with, All Dope Network. So they were the two of the writers I used to write a lot with in the early days, as well as a few others and stuff. But yeah, particularly it was Sabbath and I starting together.
Yep.
So yeah,
he wasn't far away. He's down the road.
He was just down the road in a straight bite line, really.
Yep.
I mean, because I used to have to bite there late at night, and into piece and all that sort of stuff, and vice versa. He'd come to my way later, or you'd meet at spots.
Yep.
So like always, stash your paint beforehand, pick a spot to meet near the train line, and then get started. Or of course, like most riders, usually like to hang out beforehand and get amped up.
Yep.
So for us, it was like take out pizza, You know,
He enjoys a drink.
Yeah, he loves to drink. Of course, he loves to
I've
drink.
had a few beers with him
Yeah,
recently.
no, he definitely loves to drink. But like, if it might be a take a pizza, or whatever, and just getting out before me, you know, we might watch like Beat Street or one of the other videos beforehand or whatever. Or maybe watch a bit of Rage or something.
Yep.
As well, like music or play heaps of music. So, you know, so we're both into our music. So they always get, as you know, as you're getting your sketch ready, getting your colours ready, packing your bag, you know, getting all your clothing ready and all that sort of shit, and then getting ready to go. So I guess it's a bit of a ritual, which was kind of cool, and it got you amped. I think it made the whole night special as well. And I guess with Peace, no, nothing was better for me. Like, because what people don't get is a bit like, you know, doing the hieroglyphs in Egypt, like in the tombs and whatever else in the pyramids. You know, they did all that in the dark, or you know, we're using wick candlesticks, whatever, right? Because you don't see your work until the daytime. So anyone knows that painting at night, of course, especially, you know, bushy areas or areas that are more shadowed off, or down in embankments on the line, or, you know, in the yard, you know, between trains or whatever. Everything's really dark, but colours, like brown doesn't look like brown, red doesn't look like red, green doesn't look like green, right? And of course, you know, you got your lids and all that. You might put a little marker or code on the lid. You might write something on the bottom of the lid. You know, all these little tricks that people do. You might have your lids off, maybe your outline colours, that have all your fills and that packed with the lids on. So then, you know, it's time to outline, you know, where your outline cans are. I mean, there's 101 tricks people can do, right? Everyone carried a lighter, of course. So you'd use a little lighter just to double check in case. You know, I sprayed myself in the eye once and almost blinded myself because the nozzle was obviously painting right at my eye.
You needed your ski goggles.
And I pressed down to sketch and a fucking bam right in my eye. And that took about an 8-9 hour flush at the Alfred Hospital trying to save my eye.
Did you tell him what you were doing?
My parents had to drive me down.
Oh, right.
So, yeah. So anyway, whatever. But look, I was also painting a lot at home then and stuff, you know, doing canvases at home and boards and shit. So
your parents were cool.
No, I said I was painting a board. Yeah. That's what I said. That's how it was. So, yeah. So
but your parents were cool with your painting and stuff? To an
look,
extent.
I had an older brother who was a badass.
So you couldn't do,
What he was doing was nothing compared to what I was doing.
Yeah.
And like older brothers, they break the way. I had a younger brother too. Like both my brothers have passed away now, by the way. So I had a younger brother who's almost like a twin, about 13 months apart, 14 months apart, whatever. So he did everything that I did. He died at a young age. He died at 21, I think just 22, 21 years old. But we went through all of the phases together.
Okay.
Like from graph, you know, skating, more graph, you know, raving, whatever, right? So we were really close. But again, the seed still came from the older brother as well with some of the things.
For sure. And that must have had a huge impact on your life then, if that happens at 20, if he's 21 and you're only 23.
Yeah, huge. Okay, look, without getting into it, it was a huge impact, and like he died of cancer, died 6 months after being diagnosed.
Yep.
So he's diagnosed stage 4, so it's basically too late by then.
Yep.
He was very fucking brave. Look, despite whatever, he had a bit of a harsh situation at the time. I won't go into it, but you know, when he got sick, he had to move out of home. He had to still work. So he worked for Ian Hewitson at Tolano's. So he'd go to work. Sometimes he'd rock up and just vomit straight away from like the chemo and the treatment and that. And he's supposed to say, nah, full pay, go home. And all that sort of stuff until, you know, it spread everywhere and he got so sick. But he's a real trooper. But I learned a lot of him spiritually as well. And it gets a bit of a connection to Graph is I've been working on a canvas for him since he got diagnosed, which ended up becoming my logo for A.Universal.Movement, like my rave sort of production collective company.
Wow.
And
so he lives on through that though, which is awesome.
But here's the weird thing. I've been painting, I've been doing it, you know, I had like a sky background and stuff with clouds and that, and then in gold on top, I was putting the logo on it. And the logo is like a spiritual gateway too, like it's a triangle in a circle, right? And the day I finished it, I then presented it to him that night in hospital, and he had some food brought in, and his fiance was there, and, you know, close family was there, whatever. And just having like a bit of like a dinner and stuff before, you know, because the cancer was all going around his neck. He basically couldn't breathe or eat or chew or move his mouth anymore. Anyway, I gave him the painting that night after I just finished it that day. He dies the next day. So he had that painting in front of him at the end of the bed, you know, in his dream state when he went to sleep and whatever. So I'll never forget that sort of connection, like right time, right place, what made me finish it then, what made me finish it on that day, and the fact that he kind of had this gateway painting at the time he passed away. And then he got to see the painting.
Yeah.
Because it was a gift, so yeah.
Well, I guess it's a good sort of little bit of closure, which kind of you at least you got him to get it to him, man.
Yep. Yeah, of course. Yeah, otherwise, you kind of feel gutted. It's like the whole thing didn't get it done, unfinished stuff. If only, should, could have, would have, whatever. So yeah, you're right. But I mean, we were literally like twins. In just like we did everything together. And I mean, we can talk about from sucking bongs and all sorts of other stuff that kids do, but certain from everything else I just said, just growing up, shit to getting drunk when you're young and vomiting and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
I've got a story about him just quickly. So Murder was running one of his sort of council aerosol art workshops, and it was at the Malvern fire station.
Yep.
And
which is an interesting spot for it.
Yeah, of course. And he'd just come as a briefle brick building. He'd just come back from I think it was just before he went to like LA and all that and learnt the hex trick and the stencil trick with the wood grain technique. But he was starting to do characters a lot and doing like these overfades with his character. So anyway, his board was a Joker face. He had this really cool face that looked like the Joker, so to speak, right? But really good sort of 3D fades and blends, right? And just, we all get our paint, you do a sketch, he runs the workshop. Basically, like all writers, you went there to get your free paint and your board, right, and for something to do. And of course, you get to meet some good artists and maybe you'll learn something from them as well. And I remember at the time, my brother got blind. We walked from Paranda there, but...
How old are you?
Oh, yeah, so... I'm guessing on the year, I'd probably say it's 89, maybe 90, but January though, it's like school holiday period.
So you're like 15 or something?
Yeah, 15. My brother's a little bit younger than that. He started drinking from the minute we left the house, like with his beers and spirits in his backpack, and he was hammered loaded by the time, and bongs and shit too, whatever. He was hammered, and he was smoking too because he'd smoked and drunk. He was hammer loaded by the time he walked into the workshop, and Murder just kind of looked at him, right, and he said to me like, is he all right? And I said, yeah, he's all right, don't worry, he's just a bit loaded at the moment, whatever, like we'll come round soon. And he ended up being sick later on, of course. And of course, he didn't get to paint that day, unfortunately. But it was kind of cool being the big brother. I babysat him a bit. It was just a fun adventure again, getting loaded on the way. And, Jay was very understanding as well. And I guess with the whole council set up, everyone was pretty cool about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good excuse for him to say, see, look what these kids would be doing if they didn't have
this.
Exactly. They'd just be drinking anyway.
Yeah, precisely. So, yeah.
It works for his cause. So then you just... go all in with graph.
Yeah. So come really 87, I'm fully all in. Like late 86 too, but come like the very start of 87, I'm all 86. Sorry, very start of 86. I'm in year 7. I'm all in.
Just painting anytime you could.
Yeah. Painting heaps.
Are you going to school
heaps.
still?
Yeah, I'm still going to school. And I'm skating as well at the moment, and I've already started collecting records too.
Okay.
So by age 11, I'd seriously started collecting music as well.
What year does Pram Bowl go in?
Yeah, well, Pram Bowl goes way back. So I'm a banana board kid even.
Okay, yep.
So I can even go back to like 1980.
Right.
Like proper Pram Bowl, when Pram Bowl was actually there still. It was modified one more time then, and then modified again more recently a couple more times.
Yeah, but I remember the bowl, just the snake run, and they had that little triangular rail thing.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, Pram Bowl, remember... because of school and sports and being the local pool, I used to swim at Pram pools. So as a young kid, I'm going to Pram pool anyway, and I'm seeing the bowl. Yeah. So again, cool shit. Older brother. My older brother wasn't a skater though at all, but I saw it as the cool shit and got into it as a young age anyway. And most kids, when something's trendy or cool, your parents will get it to you for Christmas or a birthday. So because I got given a banana board, probably age 6 or 7. Yep. And then, so did that for a bit. And then I stopped for a year or two. And then, skating probably came round again, 85. 85 coming into 86, just before everyone else jumped on it.
Yeah.
So then around 86, it got really big again. You had the Vision Streetwear thing and all the shops came up.
Yeah.
Because
you could buy boards, like I think on Greville Street and a couple of places on Chapel in that early stage.
So there was Vision Streetwear, there was Cheap Skates.
Yep.
Later on there was TSK, which was Team Skaters Kitchen, which Ollie Bobbitt worked at, which is Sheen.
Is that where Obese comes from? The back of that shop, was it?
No. That's later on. So no, that was Motion.
Okay.
And I used to do the motion pieces right near Hawkesburn Station, between Hawkesburn and South Yarra. He'd always do them in the legal walls, just as Ollie started working there. So Ollie worked for Motion first, which is a skate shop. Then they let him start Obese out the back, and because he got murdered to paint the store. And those cool, again, 3D rendered sort of robotic faces, which is similar to the Joker one he did at the workshop. But he did the Joker one first, so he was already just starting that technique. And then he'd rendered it more by then.
Is Ollie still around? I've heard he's around Paran somewhere.
Yeah, so look, I know Ollie's still running a lot of his fish tank stores. I don't know if he's still running his fish tank stores.
Someone sent me a link to it. They this is where you'll find him.
Yeah. So look, I got a lot of time for Ollie, and I knew Ollie when he was a skater first before a rider. Because same line, he was a Sandy Line kid. And I don't know where his other family lived too, which is right near another good rider friend of mine that he also knew well, and that was up near Hawkesburn area. And then anyway, so I thought Ollie come from a skater or a rider, and then you had early people like Acid, of course. So Acid and Bats, which of course who Murder mentored and stuff, and the Skies, early riders. They were both skaters as well as riders.
Yep.
But they were kind of rider skaters at the same time, or maybe skating just after riding. So again, I grew up and saw the parallel too. There's a lot of riders that were skaters or became skaters as well, or a lot of skaters that became riders. And another one's Reach. So Reach used to skate with me a lot, as well as Dan's. And so I remember one day, I took him to the train line, showed him some of my pieces near South Yarra Station, and we swapped some photos. He had some old Needle and Plum pieces and Zen pieces, and Jewel and a lot of the heroes in the Hursty line and stuff. And then I showed him some photos as well. But I remember taking him to the line and showing him some of my pieces. And then again, just with the loops and all that in the morning, everyone met at Richmond for loops. Flinders Street if you're on that side of the train line as well. So, they went up meeting a lot every morning because we knew each other from skating, though, and mutual friends from skating, and going to different ramps and different bowls and drains and all.
Because there wasn't many spots. You could come to Paran for the ramp and the bowl.
So we played a big part in helping the petitions to get Paran done.
Yeah.
Now, there are many other people too that were part of that, and people higher up, and the Hill Brothers and stuff as well, and all that sort of stuff, and the shops too that exist, the skate stores, and you had Surf Dive and Ski in the city as well. So that was one of the early ones, and then you had. Dale Cotton had that TV show, before the factory. There was that one on Saturday mornings.
The Early Bird Show.
Yeah, Early Bird Show. That's right, the Early Bird Show. So again,
Marty Monster.
Yeah, Marty Monster. So again, he had all the Hill Brothers and Hardcore, and and all the Vision Streetwear and all the skate shops, and of course all the Surf Dive Ski sponsored skaters. So one of those sponsored skaters who also worked for them was at my school, in my school level. So again, I got to see all them too, and got exposed to all the Hill Brothers and all those sort of guys early on. And of course, I was skating the bowl every day. So again, that show, even though the Early Bird Show didn't do graph, it was doing skating at least.
And BMX, they had a lot of BMX.
Yeah, had BMX too. But again, when the factory came around just after that, the factory had a good template to run with, because the factory did a lot of skating. They did a lot of artsy stuff with Tanya Lacey and all that. They did all the grass stuff as well. And they did a lot of the alternative stuff too, like Skinhead, Rude Boy, that sort of stuff as well. Goth mod stuff as well, and clubbing stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
As an acid house stuff.
So you mentioned that you were starting to buy records.
Yep.
What kind of records are you buying, and where are you buying them?
So I'll tell you. So again, having an older brother who had a very large record collection already, and he had a broad taste. So I can honestly say this, by the time I was 5 years old, I was, I'd done Motorhead, Judas Priest, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, like all that early metal sound. I'd seen movies like Bloodsucking Freaks, I Spit on Your Grave, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Exorcist. So we had a room where kids going to video stores, because you could still get X-rated movies then. Before the ban happened, it was camera only. So my mum used to say to me, you can get any X-rated movie as long as it's not the sex ones. And being a young kid anyway, you don't really understand sex properly at that age anyway, because my older brother did. So when we were young, we were allowed to get all of the X-rated horror movies and all the banned movies.
Right, yeah.
So again, having an older brother growing up fast, but just, mum said, well, it's just horror movies, who cares?
Yeah.
So, we used to get snuck into the drive-ins for all the R-rated movies back in the day. So you'd hide underneath the doona in the car.
Yeah. And
you'd bring your dogs and your cats as well. And then my older brother, he had to pretend to be my mum's husband and put on the deep Bradley voice, like he's the guy in the car, like he's 13 years old or whatever. So it's fucking hysterical. Yeah. So again, just this whole thing, always doing sneakies,
Yeah.
always just doing what you want, and just common sense though. You're not harming anyone, why not do it? It's the same as my take on graph, right? Like, I know if you look at it from a criminal point of view and, statute, Victorian law point of view, federal law point of view is, criminal damage, willful damage, vandalism, whatever, right?
Yep.
The thing is, okay, paint and markers, I'm not talking about scratching things or keying stuff, they don't actually damage the property. They change the property with a coat of paint on it or a coat of ink on it, but they don't actually damage the property. So I never understood the charge of willful damage. Like, okay, so when someone's painting their house, I know it's legally, it's their property, they got permission, right? I understand it's about ownership of the property and permission to paint that property, whether you got permission to paint someone else's or whether it's your own property and you're allowed to paint it. And this is also other guidelines like heritage overlays, council guidelines and stuff too. Even if you own something, you can't always just paint what you want, including painting obscenities as well on your car, like fuck you cunts. You're probably not allowed to paint that on your car and drive around the streets, right? It's probably an actual offence and you may get charged for it, right? But the point is, I never understood the damage class. I thought, wait a minute, I'm just putting a coat of paint on something.
That's public property.
Yeah. Houses are 100 years old. They've had lots of coats of paint. Like that's something people do to protect something normally, right? And technically I'm protecting this property more by putting another coat of paint. Now I know bricks mightn't be painted already and you're painting raw bricks. Like, oh, look, I'm being a bit facetious here as well. I'm a bit funny with it. But I never understood the damage part because I'm not actually damaging anything. If I arson burn it, if I kick it in, if I, stab it, kick it, do an explosive near it, whatever, I get it, right? I've damaged something, I've changed it. So and again, public property, it's for the public, right? I'm the public, pay taxes, whatever. Maybe I've got some entitlement. I know we're justifying stuff here, a bit like a shoplifter saying, oh, they're a big corporation, they got insurance, I have the right to steal because they underwrite it, right? Look, I know, there's grey areas and people can debate and justify anything the way they want, but graffiti's not stealing anything.
No. Well, it depends how deep you go.
Yeah, of course. Exactly. Yeah. Shades of grey.
For sure. So when you got into the music stuff, you're obviously borrowing from your brother.
So back to the question. I'd gone through everything from funk to metal to rock, classic rock, the 60s stuff, jazz, swing, blues, like all of it. My grandma loved opera and stuff as well. So, so I was even exposed to a lot of that. So even like, Dame Joan Sutherland, Dame Melly Melba, these are iconic heroes, of course, in Australia and of course from Melbourne. So, really, Dame Melly Melba was the first ever Australian superstar. Not counting a Ned Kelly, of course, because that's more notorious, but Dame Melly Melba travelled the world. She was world famous. She was at the top of her league. So these are icons that...
Also a really cool name.
Yeah, really cool name. And, of course, and so these are things you've got that's in your head. So I was taught, like my older brother, to be a sponge and get into all sorts of stuff. But in the end, by 11 and that, it was heavily leaning more to funk. And maybe, the classic rock stuff and all the 60s stuff and all that. But I always liked blues. I always liked funk, and I always liked, even some early gospel and that, and of course jazz. So I always, I guess, had more of an Afrocentric lean to the styles of music I liked. And then, of course, hip hop was already around the corner by then. So, because, I remember hearing all the Uprock records and like the Phase 2 release records back in 83, 84 and stuff. And then of course the more commercial stuff, Malcolm McLaren shit, the Blondie stuff, and of course, the Grandmaster Flash stuff and all that sort of business. But I was a big fan of learning the roots behind hip-hop when the samples came from, even early. But I was definitely well into funk by the time hip-hop really came around as well.
So how do you learn about that stuff? You get the record, you look at what they're sampling on there, and then you go back and dig.
Okay, so for me, it started with Greville Records. And Greville Records is an iconic store.
Is it still in that same location?
Yeah, it's still there. So it's still been there.
I thought maybe it moved or something.
Yeah, no, it's still actually there. So I actually popped in there the other day. So yeah, no, it's still there. So Warwick and John, of course, the guys who started and run it, and they taught me a lot about music as well. And that's where I found my love of Sun Ra and things like that too. He's a very experimental, Afrocentric jazz musician, or freeform jazz or avant-garde jazz musician, as well as a poet and a cosmologist amongst other things. And anyway, yeah, so I'm going there, and of course they had the second-hand bins out the back, which is probably going deep, 3 deep, 81, 20, or ask Item. Item knows exactly about Greville Records and how deep it goes. There'd be a good 24, 30 crates worth at the back part of the store, and then the newer stuff was in the front half. And then, of course, there was op shops.
Yep.
And what people don't remember too is we had the trading post. So before, eBay and Amazon and Gumtree and, Marketplace and all that sort of business, you had the trading post, right? So trading post was a newspaper that came out weekly, I believe. And, people just in print posted the little block ads with a number or whatever to reach them. And of course, you had a lot of country stall fairs or market stall fairs where bric-a-brac would get sold, antiques would get sold, and so on, specifically for records. So in those, like ones out at Bendigo, Ballarat, Dalesford, right? I was travelling out there as a young kid. You might have 100,000 records in there and stuff, right? And so you'd spend all day from like 6, 7, 8 a.m. whenever it opened till shut, 5 p.m., whatever it was. I'd spend all day, and being into more obscure music and underground music, I might find 1 or 2 records, right? Maybe 10, maybe sometimes 50, but it's the hunt of being a crate digger, right? A beat digger. You go there for the hunt. You still just might find that one record, right? So from a young age, it was op shops for me, secondhand records. You had a go-go records and stuff too. Like I remember, Prahran had a lot of music stores already too. So
Dixon's was there?
Dixon's and stuff. Well, Dixon's came a little bit later, but a go-go was one of the early ones. And the city had record stores soon because you had Central Station came a little bit later as well. Mm-hmm. So both, the city store, the Prahran one, amongst others. Plus, I guess some of your local stores, right? So I would just dig over it, but op shops was a huge source.
Yep.
Friends' collections, friends' parents' collections, like a bit like Grandmaster Flash as well. So Grandmaster Flash had this famous quotes where he used to just go out with girls because of their parents' record collections. And, after making out whatever and she's on the couch, watching some TV, whatever, he'd go for the parents' collections and just take the ones he wanted. So, yeah. So you beg, borrow, steal, so to speak. And
had electronic music come into your life by this stage?
So already knew about Kraftwerk from 77, 78 onwards. So I was a huge Joy Division fan, and then again New Order, and because my brother was a huge Joy Division fan, and then New Order, and they actually went and saw Joy Division play when they came out. I believe it was 78, 79.
Wow.
And I think New Order came out again maybe
83,
84.
Yeah.
Yep, from memory. So I saw that legacy. I've even seen videos. I think they played Joy Division played in St Kilda from memory.
Yep.
So I was, because even Joy Division was playing with some electronic stuff, but yeah, I knew about Kraftwerk and all that already. I knew about Todd Rundgren. I knew about Gary Newman, and other artists like that. I even knew about Tangerine Dream, of course. I knew about Jean-Michel Jarre. I even knew about Kataro, the famous Japanese guy. So again, I was already into that sort of spacey and otherworldly sound stuff.
Getting schooled by the guys at Greville and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, they had a lot of those records there, and a lot of op shops might have those records. Yeah. So this wasn't my older brother. This is me.
You're finding your own way.
Yeah. Kraftwerk, of course, I heard through him, but no, this is me finding my own way. Mm-hmm. And I was fascinated with synthesizers and anything space. Like I've always been a space kid. I used to paint a lot of space. A lot of backgrounds on my pieces are about space. Space. So yeah.
So I'm guessing when the acid house thing kicks off, you're like, this is everything I've been looking for.
Yeah. Well, of course. So I started clubbing when I was 15. So 88. So 14 become 15. Again, older brother, fake IDs. All my friends had older brothers, fake IDs. Or your brother's ID. Because you just, most people look similar enough to their brother. Mm-hmm. Just got to learn their date of birth, of course, and
know
their
what
name.
Star sign they were.
Know
they
what star sign, of course. and again, yeah, exactly. And again, a lot of older brothers or your mates who had older sisters were either working in the clubs or clubbing as well. So a lot of them had connections. They were the host promoters, working in the cloakroom, working at the door, or, doing other jobs inside the club.
Yeah, and back then, Prahran was the mecca for clubs.
Yeah, of course it was.
The mecca for fucking everything.
Yeah, it was. As I said, so I was lucky. So I grew up with the band scene and all of that, then the club scene. Yeah, like Kiss FM radio and that later on for underground dance music. You had the skateboarding scene and you had a lot of the graffiti scene there. And
the fashion as well.
Yeah, and the fashion as well. You had all the fashion stuff too, 100%, right? And the good thing was, also, the good thing about being in Prahran was, I had 2 lines. I had the Sandy line and the Danny Nong Frankston line / General Motors. So that was the cool thing. I'm right where 2 lines are.
Yep.
So I got to paint both lines and be on both lines.
Yep.
So that was cool having that split as well and that variety too. And even a little bit of the St Kilda line as well.
For sure. So at 15, what clubs are you sneaking into with your brothers?
So let's go here. So Okay, Checkpoint Charlie.
Which you'll remember this because a lot of people are a bit confused when they talk about that.
Yep.
Was that what became? What venue did it become?
So Checkpoint Charlie later on became Three Faces.
Yes, okay.
Which was, of course, with a famous gay venue, of course.
Yes.
When Commercial Road was, Melbourne's poor man's answer to Oxford Street, Sydney.
Yep.
And I say poor man's answer.
And then Three Faces becomes Sub Lounge or something like that, was it?
No. So my brother, the older brother too, was a clubber. So across from Checkpoint Charlie before that was the club that got burnt down. Now you're testing my grey area. How do you
Bloody Mary's, was it?
No. Bloody Mary's Virgin Mary's was further down the road.
Mary's, yeah.
And that got burnt down by a Greek family because it was sacrilegious.
Okay.
And that again was a gay drag queen venue as well.
Yep.
But that's the
Market.
So the Market, that was Three Faces.
Faces, right.
And now because it's owned by Glenn Wheatley's ex-wife. And it's a big,
Emerson.
Yeah, the Emerson. That's right, the Emerson now. It's a really well fitted.
And then now what is the Osborne used to be D&M's.
Yeah, D&M's. Yeah, D&M's too. Yep. And because, you had the other D&M's in Richmond too, which is next door to Molly Meldrum's house.
Oh, that's DT's.
Oh, DT, sorry, yeah, DT's.
Yep.
I can tell you another Molly Meldrum story just on a side tangent to do with music. So Molly Meldrum's house literally was 30 metres from my door.
Wow.
So as a young kid, Countdown was the show. Molly had open door on the weekends. Pretty much. And he had this famous doorbell. His doorbell was the traffic light button.
Like that? But the older one.
No, the old one, the yellow one.
With the
rubber button by NHP. And I actually know the son of Nigel H. Peck, because that's NHP. So NHP did all the stop buttons, right?
Yeah, they used to have a place in Richmond there.
That's right, in Richmond, yeah.
Just down the back near Channel 9.
That's right. So I learned all about those buttons later on from my brother's friend, Matty Peck, who's a son of Nigel H.
That button's very
Peck.
similar to the one on the torch.
Yeah.
But it was yellow.
Absolutely the same thing as that button. Yeah. So anyway, he had this famous doorbell button with the stop button on it because everyone knew all the laneways at the back of his house and all the houses there. And of course, a lot of Greek kids and migrant kids in my community. But anyway, so Molly had open doors. So again, from age 5 onwards, he let all the kids in up until a certain time of the day. I saw Iggy Pop. I saw Blondie. I saw a lot of big Australian bands as well, blah, blah, blah. But he loved just the kids just coming in and out for a certain time of the day. I could say things about Scott Kahn from Kids in the Kitchen, that he wasn't coming on the show unless he went upstairs. And, some people might say otherwise, but I could say lots of sort of stories about how the music industry worked, how deals get cut, and maybe how Molly approves you getting on the show. And let's just leave it at that, right? So, and good on for Molly, right? And that's rock and roll. Hey, that's the music biz.
That's it.
So anyway, so again, being exposed to that and having, because you got to meet all the other kids in the street too in the community, because Molly just loved it. It was this fascinating thing. This is pretty much one of the #1 shows in the country, and one of the coolest because it's to do with music, right?
Yep.
And you're allowed to go in and meet this icon and with the hat and all that, but also just meet a lot of these big stars as well as he's interviewing them, hanging out with them, partying with them, whatever, right? And so that was really cool having that around you as well, because he eventually sold that place and moved to Richmond, of course.
Yep. So he was in Paran.
Yeah, he was in Paran. Literally 30, maybe 40 metres from my door.
Wow. Okay. Cool. So then this is your entry into the whole club
world.
Yeah,
it's a club thing. So Checkpoint Charlie's, of course, Inflation, Chasers, Chevron, Warehouse came a touch later, Zuzu's, IDs.
What was Zuzu's?
So Zuzu's is legendary, right? And not those that know about Zuzu's, and those that don't. So Zuzu's had, again, so gay culture starts most things, right? And this is even globally now.
Yep.
Most trends, like even, Grindr to Tinder, whatever, right? We can talk about the music scene, all the house music scene came from the gay clubs first. Techno, not really, but, there's still some players that were gay in the early-ish period, but techno, not at all. Techno's more of a straight thing, but house music definitely, and disco, of course.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to talk about so many other trends as well, but anyway, so...
Even language and memes and stuff come from that, the whole slay and all that sort of stuff.
Of course.
And then it takes over.
Watered down, though.
But,
Remember, straight people adopt gay culture, watered down. Because straight people just don't party like that. You know what I mean? Or whatever. So the bottom line is, and I guess, from a gay person's point of view, it's like, oh, yeah, you guys are so tragic, you water it down. Not in a bad way I say that, but it's just like, A, it gets appropriated secondhand, B, you didn't invent it, and then C, oh, that's how you do it. So vanilla. Like, do you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
Well, it's just it's a different bent. It's a different angle. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like gay people have a different bent to straight people, and people that are bisexual, whatever, in the middle, whatever, and everything else that people are or aren't. You're just yourselves, right? But the point is, I think a lot from what I've seen in gay culture and people I know in gay culture, they do stuff to the extreme. They do it with bravado. They have a fucking great time doing it. And they own it, loud and proud, right? Loud and proud. So, and also, persecution, knocking down doors, possible shame, doing it in secrecy. I mean, there's all those other badges that come with it that you need to respect. And so a lot of clubbing for me, like my first ever boss was a guy called Gavin Campbell, who started Razor.
I know Gavin, yeah.
Yeah, and Gavin's an absolute legend. Whenever I see him, I always say, you were my first boss. And so I got with Razor, and Razor were the pinnacle for how most other promoters came since then. Not counting the rave scene, right? But even then, the rave scene as well. But Gavin just did fabulous parties. He created the mixed club. So gay, straight, bi, lesbian, whatever else, right? He just got everyone in a room. It didn't matter what you were, what colour you were, ethnic background, poor, rich, whatever. He just got fabulous people together. And if anyone knows anything about promoting, hosting, or putting on parties, people make a party. It's not the fit out. I mean, the sound system's important and all of that. Don't get me wrong. It's been sound system cheese. But that all doesn't matter. And then if you get the right people at a party, you get a party, regardless of every other variable.
Yep.
And Gavin just knew how to make a party. He knew how to get the right people.
So where did you meet him?
So Clubland first. So here I'm going out first. So, I'm going out. So, 88, 89, 90, 91. So first I'm going to all of those clubs, So Zuzu's was a mixed crowd club too. Yeah, drag queens there, gay people there, straight people as well, adventurous people, alternatives. And same with inflation. One thing I loved about inflation was on the second level. You had people like Snog and Dave, who's Dave Fussell and Ollie Olsen, and all these experimental artists were doing this avant-garde, noisy, weird, artistic, experimental stuff. So it was good going to a club, besides your more mainstream stuff, whatever, And this is before like Richmond Club were doing the hip hop night, which Gasp used to run as well, Richard Marr. Because, there weren't really many hip hop nights. And of course, City Square had stuff. Factory did some parties occasionally. I know Chasers, you had like, there was Paul Madanka and because Chain Reaction Chase, and there was DJ Breeze, and there was DJ Item as well, and and XL of course too, DJ XL. So there's all these other hip hop DJs who were playing the circuit in clubs, and I guess you had Hip House and that coming in too. And I remember when Jungle Brothers came and they're at Central Station, and of course then
New Jack sort of stuff.
And then they played at Checkpoint Charlie as well, and there were other appearances at the Metro too, and like when Phase 2 and Days came out into it as well, and. Now, unfortunately, you got Velour and Double O, which were just like this poxy sort of one hit wonder hip hop group. But, then you had Tricky and Gumby from Mighty Big Crime, and, again, Ransom used to diss them a lot, rightfully so on the Factory and in general, because, Mighty Big Crime are like our poor man's answer to the Beastie Boys. And look, I know Gumpy's a great guy, and good luck to them. But from an underground hip hop point of view, and I know they were a bit more skaterish too, they just weren't the real deal. And and then Ransom had like AKA Brothers and all that stuff was going on, Pack and Esky and all that sort of stuff, and Dread and all that business. And the Sydney boys doing their stuff too, like Death Wish Cast and all that. You even had like Nemo, Park Bench Royals. Where Murder did the artwork for the records. So Central Station were putting out like these small records. But anyway, so back in Clubland, you did have the hip house thing. You had hip hop to a degree, or just underground parties. And then you had, like dance stuff was coming in. So the main guy in my eyes and the real king and hero, and Steve comes from a little bit of a knowing the graffiti scene as well background, Steve Robbins. Steve Robbins is a man. Steve Robbins could scratch, he could cut, he was good at the DMCs in Victoria as well. So was some other good sort of hip hop DJs from Melbourne and elsewhere too, and up in Brisbane and that as well. But Steve Robbins was our hero, right? And back then DJs played 5 venues in a night. So you club hop. So you, like, punters would club hop with the DJ. When he left, you left. You went to the next venue. So you'd follow your favourite DJ around. And, you know, you'd get in your taxi or have you managed to get there, whatever, and do it right. And so Steve also used to play at most of these clubs and all the clubs. Like, Chevron was always a little bit more commercial. You know, with Annie Van and John Corson and all that. You know, we're still doing it singing, and it is what it was. Chasers, you know, even like when Frankie D and those sort of people came in as well. But, you know, Chaser would host the DMCs, which was always a good thing too. But, you know, they were first with Express and Express 2. So they were already doing like early rave and I guess, you know, acid house, and I guess hip house as well too. But, you know, all those clubs I mentioned, you know, there's even Cadillac Bar, had a few things going on too.
Where was Cadillac Bar?
Carlton.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah. But, and yeah, so they were kind of, you know, then you had like, you know, later on Maze. The Maze was a big thing too from 1990, 91. That was very alternative. That was kind of one of the birthplaces for rave music too, besides the chemistry and biology parties, which were put on by Richard and Heidi John from the Mud Collective. You know, and then Mark James also with them put on the boom parties. So this is all sort of coming in 89, 90, 91. This is sort of the seed.
And then, so when do you go from punter to being involved?
Yeah, okay, so I'll tell you. Yeah, so I started hosting probably 1990, 91. I was already DJing just house parties, as in at people's houses.
Playing all sorts of music?
No, I was hip-hop.
Yep.
Electro, as in proper electro, so like New York electro or Detroit electro and stuff.
Yep.
And because, you know, a bit of funk and soul maybe mixed in with hip as well. And of course dance stuff, some hip house stuff and I guess early acid house stuff as well. And acid music.
Yep.
So,
and are you just song selecting? Are you beat matching and doing something
yeah,
theatrical?
So coming from a hip hop background, I'm more cutting and doing bleed mixing. So maybe 4-8 bars in, you bleed it across, you know, in time, still beat mix, but short mixes, or you're cutting at right points, or you're scratching in, cut points and stuff. But I'm still finding my way to, so I've done a few club gigs in those years, and I'm doing a lot of house parties and stuff as well, and friends parties. But I'm already in the scene, and I'm entrenched in the scene. I know a lot of people, and lots of, you know, said my friends' sisters are in the scene, you know, my brother's in the scene, my friends' brothers are in that scene as well, and I'm exposed to it early. And like we were going out 3-4 nights a week already from 88 onwards.
Well, yeah, and you don't have to go very far when you're in Fran. Like you can't really.
Of course,
you're going to hear it from your house basically.
So at school, it's a badge of honour having the pass outs all over you, and we used to keep, you know, the 6-packs, the plastic that holds together. You'd have them wrapped around your wrist on once. We'd go to school with all that on our wrist still and falling asleep in class and all that sort of business. So yeah. And then what I guess got me started more with the DJ thing too was radio. So my older brother again was into radio. So he started at 3RPH, which was a community station, but for the disabled and impaired and stuff.
Right.
And then he moved on with me to PBS. So then we joined PBS in 1990 into 91.
Yep.
So this is before Kate Bathgate's show, Transmission, which was called Eat the Beat or Beat in the Street before that. Sorry, Kate, if I got that wrong. Chrissy's show was just about to start or just started. Con had a show as well.
Yep.
If you remember Con with his friend. I can't remember what it was called, but, you know, he had another great show like Chrissy's. I think he was Triple R though. And again, Ollie Olsen was already on PBS. So again, I saw this. Ollie Olsen was great because I saw his character with the big white blonde dreadlocks. My maths teacher, his house was a house used in Dogs in Space.
Oh, wow.
And again, I remember seeing
Is it in Richmond?
Yeah, in Richmond. Yeah, and I remember seeing the Gaza or, you know, Murder and Jay, or, you know, disguise and murder pieces on the Armadale wall, or the Armadale to Malvern wall.
Yep.
And Gaza had put up Dogs in Space on his piece and stuff. And because there were stencils everywhere. So that was the first time too you saw this whole stencil branding.
Yep.
Because Dogs in Space was stenciled everywhere all over Melbourne. That we got to go on site quite a few times during the filming.
Oh, wow.
Because our school teacher, our maths teacher, would take the whole class, his class only, to go and, you know, meet Lowenstein and you know, Michael Hutchins and everyone else and see the filming of it and stuff. So that was really cool to do that and a good experience.
Yep.
And again, seeing the time with the graffiti stencils everywhere and you know, and then a writer like The Skies sort of giving it props on some walls and stuff. that was a good time for me to sort of, again, the whole culture cross-pollination, but just too that there are other scenes like film industry or, line scene, that's more the punk scene anyway, and the goth scene and the avant-garde scene, but seeing them get into other cultures but still appropriate everything else. Because the good thing about the early days isn't like with most cultures, everyone chips in to help each other's. You're a hybrid in a way anyway, or as I say with Australia, besides the Sharpie culture and that, Australia's got a big knack of we import subcultures. Whether they're British ones or American ones, right? But the thing about Melbourne that's very unique to Melbourne, even to the other states, is Melbourne people are die hard on their subculture. So much so they end up embracing it probably even harder and for longer than where the subculture came from itself. Prime example is probably the punk scene to a degree. I mean, our punk scene wasn't as big as London, definitely wasn't as mainstream as it got in London. That we had punks way longer after it died in England. Right? Hip-hop scene still growing strong today and became literally one of the leading cities in the world. Definitely for graffiti culture.
Yep. Club culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Coffee culture.
Yeah, coffee culture.
We fucking just take it.
Exactly. And rave culture as well. So Melbourne had the longest running continuous warehouse party scene in the world, which is really from 88, 89 to the end of 2001 when things changed.
It all changed.
Yeah, well, bad year for all the big promoters that year. Festivals were already a couple to a few years in. And it was a change of the guard. It was time for festivals.
Yep.
But no real, because remember, Sydney had Anna Woods. With the death of Anna Woods, she drank too much water on E and died. And that was one of the first reported death cases of E death in the world anyway. So that made, New South Wales and Sydney, politicians and laws come down hard. So that killed their scene around 95. 95 also in England, you got the new laws when no more than 5 people could gather in a public place and they couldn't blast music, I think more than 70 or 80 decibels, was called the Rave Act.
Right.
And America got a similar act as well around that time. So what happened was America and England, Europe didn't, of course, because Europe embraced rave culture early, and of course rave kind of started in England and Europe at the same time, being both part of Europe anyway, even though it started in America, but America never recognised its own talent if it comes from an Afrocentric background.
It took them a long time for the US to embrace that kind of music.
It takes the Chemical Brothers, it takes a Paul Oakenfold, and then when they toured America for this time, what's this rave thing? This came from your country in multiple states, and you're 10 years too late. Now the headliner comes, 8 years too late, 4 years too late, 5 years too late. Now the headliners come over and you're going to be, what's this thing? They started it because you guys came over to their countries, propagated it, showed them how it's done, and they got inspired and they did a white European version of it.
Yeah.
So you got to understand with music too, like the England-American thing, and I put Europe in with England. Each one kind of rules a decade. Like Britain will rule a decade more musically than it'll be America. But it's always like, Bowie or the Stones and all that influenced by, the black guys from America and the blues and the roots music and the gospel. And then, the British guys do stuff and then the Americans go, wow, that's kind of cool. Then they take it. You could take, with indie stuff and even like bands like the Pixies and all that too. Yeah. That could come off punk, new wave, post-wave.
But you look at Elvis Presley comes from the...
Of course.
And then it just keeps going.
Rock and roll. The expression rock and roll is to fuck, to rock and roll. That's what it means, of course. And, Little Richard, and we can talk about Pill before that and all that sort of stuff.
It's been happening forever.
Yeah.
You see it with Eminem as well. He takes the black culture, they make it...
Kraftwerk brought it to Detroit, Chicago, New York, to born electro, techno, and house. Right? So these white guys doing weird straight-laced shit with computer stuff. I know there were people before them as well too. Your Tangerine Dreams, and we could talk about Stockhausen, and we go back to like the 1930s and even the 1919, and of course, technically, a pianola is the first ever programmable synth.
Oh, yes, that's true. I didn't think about that.
Well, it's a notated sequence on a metal roll that spins around and is automated.
Yeah, that's fucking... Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, just pump the pedals.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah. So people don't get that. Like, that's a sequence of people. That's a drum machine in a way. Yep. Or a piano machine, so to speak.
Well, yeah.
So coming back to all of that, the cross-cultural appropriation, all that sort of stuff, like, I'm seeing everything melt together. And then, still skating, still doing graph, of course, but now got the clubbing thing too. And the music thing's becoming more after buying music a lot and playing it. And I'd already bought my DJ set by then. I think like all DJs, it's your passage of rights. You got to save up and buy your mixer and your turntables and stuff.
What mixer did you get?
Okay, Central Station. I can't remember, it was a CTC or CTX. It was the one that had like the 6 effects on the side.
Okay.
Like echo, reverb.
That would have been big back then.
Yeah. So it was one of the flagship ones at Central Station because one went good. And because I heard, from all the like early BDP live records and stuff like that. And it goes from all the toasting and the reggae stuff and all that sort of business. And the space boxes like from Lee Scratch Perry and the Mad Professor and stuff. I learned about all these effects. And so I wanted the one with the 6 button effects on it. And it had the split, voltmeter on it as well. So left and right line had the voltmeter to get your levels right because you could split it.
And it had a crossfader.
Yeah, the crossfader and split queuing. And I think it had 4 split queuing.
Okay.
So I could hook up more decks. So straight away it was...
This is an out there one for the 80s. That's a crazy mixer.
Yeah. So for me, I got my 2 turntails again from the Trading Post. And my grandma took me to buy because I'm a young kid. She goes, I don't want you getting ripped off being a young kid with all this money on you, right? Yeah. So a good family friend of ours is Sean Kelly. Now, Sean Kelly was one of the most famous DJs, and he did the very famous remix of De La Soul's I Know, right? And so my grandma takes out, then the DJs who I bought the secondhand 1200s and not the mix of the 1200s off. Of course, my grandma, we're talking about price and trying to haggle a bit. Then my grandma goes, Sean Kelly is, basically it's my grandma's best friend's kids, right? Grandkid to kid, because she knew the parents well and the grandparents well. He's my family's best friend, right? So can you do a better deal or should I call Sean now? Right? It was just one of those funny things, right? Even though we didn't have mobile, she was going to landline it, right? And because they knew who Sean was and the rest of it and stuff. So they gave me another $200 off.
Oh, wow.
Which was really, really nice.
Huge for back then.
Yeah, it was really, really nice to do that and stuff. And so again, just these small little connections, these small little things, but I'm showing the ropes early. I'm getting in early and I'm just happy to at least know some key players early and stuff as well and get started. But it's all about passion again. You save up, dedicated, you do what you want. This is what I want to do. Uh-huh. So again, I'm not doing the traditional school stuff. I'm already carving away. I'm into art. I want to do art stuff. I want to do music stuff. I want to do the cool shit. I'm skating already too. So I'm already trying, and I'm doing well, and I've got lots of friends. Like I had a really big friend base as well, all that sort of stuff too. But like some kids that, I wasn't the guy where I'm just mates with my mates at school, even though I had lots of really good friends at school. By the time I'm in year 9, year 10, I'm already got 5 circles, 5 scenes. Yep. And I'm friends with people, some friends that aren't even at school anymore that have dropped out. I'm friends with friends at lots of other schools and friends with people in lots of different groups.
Yeah.
So
you're
that
a connector though.
Yeah, connected. And that kind of opens your mind up more, gets you a bit braver, but also gets you to slip in quicker as well. Uh-huh. But also you're forming your own identity quicker and you're not as influenced as well. Uh-huh. And maybe around people who are a little bit older or people that are just as brave or open-minded or just, getting out there sooner. Like, just be yourself. Get out and do your own thing. There's a big world out there. And once you sort of leave school anyway, it's a level playing field. Uh-huh. It's about who you are, and what are you doing with your life?
For sure.
Not what you do, like fuck what your job is, who really cares in the end, unless your job's important to you. But it's about who you are through what you do.
Yeah. And so when you start, who gives you your first club gig? So you elevate from the house parties to the clubs.
Yep. So I've done a few small club gigs, which I'll count and won't count. But it's a good friend of mine, his name's Damien. So I had a lot of my school friends are all working back at Palace. Mm-hmm. So we could talk about, recordings of Nirvana when they played there and, all that sort of stuff because he ran the mixing desk at the Palace. So I was there for all that sort of stuff too. Like that's kind of history as well. They hung out for quite a few weeks in Prahran in that area. They did some bootleg recordings and shit. Because they hung out at Greville Records quite a bit too and all that sort of stuff. Yep. But anyway, so with my friend who worked at the Palace, he was in bands. He did a lot of band stuff, but he was getting into the industrial stuff. So 9 Inch Nails, Nitsa Eve, Suicide, like all that sort of stuff with what you call industrial, right? Yep. And they're in a bit of goth and all that sort of stuff too. And I guess, your big guitar bands at the time as well. But they're really finding industrial and all of that. And they've been all my mates again since grade 3, grade 4, whatever, right? So because they're at the Palace, and I'm starting to go out to the Palace and, there's nights starting to happen there as well too, Pure in the back room and stuff. Mm-hmm. This is before Pure though. He gets my first gig to play support for his industrial band stuff and his band stuff. And that was my first time, my first DJ name was DJ Ghetto Vinyl. So it was Ghetto, and I was already doing my radio show. So my radio show, by the way, later on PBS happened to be just after Chrissy's show.
Oh, wow.
Which I loved. So I had the handover after Chrissy.
At midnight.
Yeah, midnight. That's exactly right. So we did the midnight till 6, the graveyard shift.
Fuck.
But I had a few other shows on PBS before, but that was our first stable regular show.
And that's around the corner from the Palace too.
Yeah, from the Palace, exactly. Yeah, so that was late 90 coming into 91, right?
Wow.
And because I used to do the shout outs on Chrissy's show, and you'd call up most of the times do raps on Chrissy's show and Con's show as well too. Con's show was Step Into the AUM was Chrissy's.
Chrissy.
Con's show will come to me again anyway.
Okay. Yeah, so the Palace, you get your first gig?
Yeah, to get my first gig, and that was nice. As a mate, said to me, nah, dude, you're DJing, you're out, you got all the records, right? You got the equipment, you moved out of home, all that sort of shit already. Like, fuck, I want to support you. So it was nice he did that, and it was a nice gesture, and paid me all that sort of stuff. Just seeing your official name up there and all that sort of business. So that was kind of my first step, and yeah, it was the back of the Palace.
Yeah.
Now, I had another friend too. I went to school with and got him started. So I got him into radio when I was already in radio. So again, he started PBS. His show was called Intoxication. So Intoxication was a very famous dance music show. And he came just after Kate Bathgate's show. And of course, Ollie Olsen was already doing his show and splicing his reels and that. So the thing about Ollie was you could see Ollie usually at PBS from 10 p.m. till 6 in the morning during my graveyard shift. He'd be in the other studio that you could see through the windows. Obviously tripping and doing his thing. Right? But he'd be cutting reel and producing and making music all night long in his overalls.
Yeah.
So again, Ollie Olsen's a legend in the music scene, right? Both from the punk scene, one of the first ever punk music stores, of course, in Richmond, right? Where almost the first Renegade store was, with Roland S. Howard and stuff. And it goes later on, because he did the Max Q album with Michael Hutchence.
He did.
After the Kick album, did the experimental album. Of course,
I've got the Max Q album up there.
Yeah, and Todd Terry produced that. So Todd Terry was the hottest house music / hip house music producer at the time in the world. That was, and that was all because of Ollie's doing. Like, Ollie would have told Michael, who do you get? Who do you do? And because Ollie was producing it with him as well.
Yep.
And then, so then I heard about Ollie, and Ollie was about to start the Psy Harmonics label too, which is when Psytrance started, and really one of the first people in the world to even do Psytrance, besides some of the early progenitors from Goa and stuff.
Yep.
And anyway, so that's what Ollie's doing then. So I'm starting to get more into the dance music thing now. Tracks like Total Confusion come out, and of course, you had the Shaman, you had the KLF as well. And then, I guess you had more commercial stuff like, Snap and all those sort of stuff where it's, I guess, hip house coming into dance music. You already had New Order doing their stuff as well. And et cetera, et cetera. So you got some of this stuff coming to the mainstream or crossing over. Some of it were underground, incredibly crossing over.
Yep.
And these artists were just starting to come to Australia like 91, 92.
And I guess at this time, people are starting to embrace it. And so even the mainstream artists are putting out like an extended edit.
Yeah. So, because of club culture, remember? Yeah. So the hip hop was a good progenitor for this too. So hip hop always had the instrumental side. The BPM was always listed. Psalms what key it in was listed. The acapella was always on there too. So that was what you call DJ tools. Before there was DJ tools, there was DJ tools. And of course, there was the Simon Harris Break series, and there were other break series too. There were all these overseas catalogs where you could order music from, and certain big distributors you could order from the catalogs. Then of course Australia mimicked that with their own catalogs too. Some of them very cheesy, some not. And then when DJ Item got started selling all the 78 records, right, to Greville Records, all famous funk and soul breaks and the reggae ones and all that. That's how he got started. Him and
the 45s or the 78s?
78.
Oh, the 78s,
yeah, with the dial, because that's all the reggae toasting stuff,
Okay,
all the instrument stuff. So him and a friend Adam used to write graffiti as well too. So Sotel, he used to write Sotel, and of course Item. So I remember them, coming to Greville Records too, like these huge boxes, trying to sell and offload a lot to John and Warwick and stuff, as much as they were buying as well, because Item started doing the rounds everywhere. So that's how he really started his serious crate digging. Like, he was already crate digging, of course, but this is what seriously got him into it in a major way. And then, of course, helping supply a lot of the big stores around Melbourne with good music and other DJs and other music lovers.
For sure.
And like, he was a fiend, but like, that's when he started buying serious amounts of records.
For sure.
So...
Item's got his own show. We're talking about you.
Of course. Yep, exactly.
So if people want to watch that, they can check out the Item episode. but then you go from the Palace back room
Yep.
to then you're...
So Frank was running a night called Intoxication, which then also became a club at the Golden Gate, which Kerry ran, Kerry Tuora, who ended up owning, Mother's Milk, Electric Ladyland.
And he only got out a few years ago.
Yeah, he only got a few,
Blue Bar,
Blue Bar, all of them.
Lucky Liquor, a lot of them.
And then he had Barjar Bar up in Queensland as well and stuff. And he started he was the first to do like the music bar, lounge bar culture. He invented that really. And because, Blue Bar originally had no name. It was just a blue neon sign.
I've got a Blue Bar tattoo.
Yeah,
I
awesome.
played there for a long time. But this is like in the...
Yeah, later on. Yeah, I played Blue Bar too. Like some scratcher friends of mine, hip-hop friends of mine, G2000 and Showtime.
Yeah. It's so interesting with Blue Bar because it's got so many different like eras.
Yep.
And
it does.
Yeah, and so around that mid sort of 2010s, that was sort of my time. But it had so many eras. But yeah.
Yeah, of course, and lots of good DJs. So anyway, so Baylor Pass to like Intoxication, and then of course like the rave scene starting. So of course I'm in the rave scene already. Like I'm going to Maze and all that. I'm going to Temple. I'm going to all the other clubs I mentioned earlier. I've been to biology and chemistry. There's been Hardware One was New Year's Eve 91 into 92, so that was coming in. Of course, the Hardware 2, 3, 4, etc., past Hardware 20. Of course, then all the Every Picture parties as well.
Uh-huh.
So they're all starting as well. Biology and chemistry being the precursor before the Every Picture party started.
Was Every Picture like a queer thing, or was that
No. So you had Red Raw. So the Red Raw and all of that. So Red Raw and Winter Days. That was the Also Foundation, right? Which is like the Gay Foundation, for the AIDS Foundation, all that sort of stuff. They were using the Docks venue, maybe other venues first, from about 81 onwards.
Wow.
So again, gay culture first, already on the pulse. Big productions, big sound systems, huge lighting rigs and systems, and flying in people or using some of Australia's best choreographers and stage set designers to do the whole fit out and setup. Mm-hmm. Like again, pre-rave before it was rave.
Yep.
So this is what I'm saying about culture permeating and
propagating.
And propagating. That's right. Beforehand. So again, Red Raw and all of that, and Winter Days, that became it was already big and going, but it became big and got in the mainstream probably by around 91, 92.
Uh-huh.
And even by 92, 93 onwards, a lot of ravers would still even go to Winter Days or Red Raw as well. So because get a lot of crossover in the clubland too, a lot of mixed crowd nights as well.
Yep.
And rave scenes had a little bit of mix, but rave scene probably not as much.
Uh-huh.
Because rave scene was a harder sort of music overall, and it was a more underground sort of music.
More drug culture?
Yeah, well, look, there's drugs everywhere, right? Like even metalheads are going to be doing a whole lot of, speed and just going to their concerts or sitting at home all night on the couch or whatever, whatever, right? Or racing cars or getting out shotguns or whatever people want to do, getting their dog out or whatever, whatever people in different cultures like to do, and so the bottom line is, look, I'll be honest here, I said my brother was a bit of a badass, so he was IV using at a young age. But a lot of, it wasn't uncommon for a lot of ravers, 92, 90, maybe 93, 94 onwards. A lot of people were IV using from 15 onwards, 16 onwards, 17, 18, 19. Because, like all gateways, a lot of people might start other ways, of course. And then when that doesn't work, or it's not as economical to work that way, or they're just not getting the rush, or they want to be a bit more badass, right? They graduate, so to speak, and that's just how it goes. But so you wouldn't get that as much in the club culture. Mm-hmm. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yep.
And we'll think about raves was right. They're abandoned buildings. A lot of them are legal. Some aren't illegal, right? Some are purpose spots that they've gotten and cut deals with to use for long periods or not. Some promoters are doing a different venue for each party. But the bottom line is, you're going into this huge room, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people, right? Mm-hmm. That's for the rave level. A couple of raves or special events, top that number, work up to 10 to 12,000. And then, of course, the numbers graph that besides Big Day Out or Boiler Room or rock concerts. The festival then transcended those numbers later on.
Yeah.
So Stereosonic, Future Music Festival, etc., etc. So, but you got this many people in a room, right? You can do whatever you want to do. Security, like you're in on it anyway, right? The security later on started taking $100 bribes, let people in for the back door. Now, this is more like 95, 96, 97 onwards. Then, of course, a lot of the Asian crews, we know when there was a big heroin flood in Melbourne in 96, a lot of Asian crews started going to the raves. Why? They wanted somewhere to be smacked out all night because they couldn't do it anywhere else. And a lot of the Asian kids weren't even went into the rave. It was funny. You'd see one whole column or 1/4 of the warehouse room, but all be Asians, they'd all smacked out or, on other drugs. But they had this whole quadrant area that was theirs. But you could tell they weren't really part of the rave or didn't really care for it. They just needed a fucking place to do what they were doing all fucking night until the sun came up again, right? And because, they bring their own stigma too and knife fights, and we can talk about Salt Nightclub and other stories in business.
Yep.
But the bottom line is you got all this freedom at the rave. You could do whatever you wanted to, right? So I used to call other raves like techno clowns. How ravers weren't busted sooner and quicker. How, 100 grand, 80 grand, 60 grand wasn't taken at the door when most door bitches were the promoter's girlfriend, right? Anyone with any smarts or criminal smarts going, I never understood, and thank God it didn't happen. I know raves are about peace, love, unity, respect, like Plur, and that's a culture. But there was also seedy characters in the scene, and there were drifters in and out, but anyone with a bit of nous and smarts. But just so lucky that, sometimes 120K at those doors. They even got more later on. And then, Brinks and all the other money companies had to be hired where every 2 hours or hour they would come and just offload the takings.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you didn't want to be caught holding the bag, so to speak.
Yeah, or robbed, right? But this is getting up more to late 90s by then, like 97 onwards, 2000. The money got bigger, the numbers got bigger, but other cross-pollination got bigger, but also other people are noticing what this is and how big the pie is, right? Mm-hmm. But very lucky for the rave scene that none of that stuff ever happened.
But there was, with the gay side of it, there was like raids in that respect.
Of course, yeah. So I was part of the Tasty raid again. Gavin Campbell, Razor Productions ran the Tasty night amongst Savage and countless other nights that we could talk about. But the Tasty raid was a big deal. So that was in '94, of course. I was there for my friend's 21st birthday. I also, was a host and promoter for the Razor nights as well. And there was whispers and stuff. And there's a little bit of whispers sometimes maybe when you walked in, and really it was a big joke. Right, the cop station around the corner, the head sergeant obviously wanted to play a big joke on the gay community or the mixed gay community or whatever, said, let's go and have a laugh. The warrant said, we're here to find large quantities of drugs, whatever. I think in the end it was 8 prescription pills were found or something.
Wow.
Big whoopee-doo.
Yeah.
And prescription pills that were legally prescribed to people, right. Most likely.
So you think it was premeditated to have a go at
it was 100% premeditated go to have a joke, and it because backfired big time, not only on the police force's coffers, but also on the state government. I mean, Jeff Kennett had to apologise on the news, right? And also had to pay some of the money from the class action. Also, a lot of the money, of course, from the police. Police have a fund, they have different funds in each state, where they raise money, of course, just through donations, their own crew, family, friends, whatever, businesses, but they have their own fund, right? And that fund gets deployed for whatever reason, right? And because all those coffers were basically almost stripped bare as well too, because of this atrocity that happened. And really, what it really is about is, it's not about gay or anything else, it's a human rights issue. And it's Australia's Stonewall. So it's similar to Stonewall, of course, in America back in the late 60s and stuff. But it's our Stonewall moment, right? But besides even that and the gay element, which is a big part of it, it was a human rights issue. This was a gross violation of human rights, regardless of your orientation, persuasion, or who the hell you want to be and how you want to express yourself. Mm-hmm. And, the open cavity searches, everyone getting stripped. Everyone in view of basically everyone getting stripped with just a couple of small screens. And, and of course the police not knowing what to do. First, only male cops came, then they didn't. And the funny thing was with the drag queens. The drag queens all sat at one of the bars in the middle because the cops didn't know, do we treat you as women or men or what do we do? They didn't expect there'd be women there because, there's lots of lesbians and just, mixed crowd again too. There's lots of women there, lots of guys there too, gay, straight, bi, whatever else. So the female cops came about 2 hours later because they had to find more forgotten, get them in because they didn't know, shit, how do we strip search the women?
Yeah.
And the whole thing took a good 6 hours, I think, from memory. I mean, I was one of the last to be searched. So I set up my rights earlier on and, my background, knowing a lot about the law and stuff. And I know another prominent lawyer, Gary Singer, who was head of the class action case with the other lawyers as well that ran it. We asked to see the warrant, of course, and you're entitled to see the warrant. And because the head sergeant straight away called me out, I was in my boiler suit, I had my ski goggles on, whatever, right? He gets his big bludgeon torch, the big black metal torch, whacks me on the back of the head, grabs me and calls a few other cops, come over and says, I'm detaining you and searching you near the end because you're being a smart ass. Right, so then I was locked in a toilet cubicle with police guard until about probably the last hour and a half. Went up to join near the back part of the queue for the searching. And so, you learn about this. And of course, once it happened, hotlines were set up straight away. A lot of police intimidation happened in the background. People were getting death threats. People's houses were getting stalked. People's places of work were getting stalked. There so happened to be some very prominent people at that raid. And if you've seen the Tasty Raid doco, it's a very good documentary.
I haven't. I've got to check it out.
I definitely, you'll be able to see it online, but it came out as well, got released too, and very good crew did it and stuff. But it's a really good doco that covers the whole thing, goes through the whole history and the context and what happened, during the raid, after the raid, the class action case, and of course later on, and then the reunion party that they did.
Yeah.
Once because I think it was 2004, it was 10 years, and that's when the class action was won and the final payouts were done. So I think there was a 10-year window to lay claim to your payout as well.
Yeah, right.
And so the bottom line is, the police had egg on their face then. I definitely short would have set a precedent in the background that be careful next time when you're going to start raiding clubs and who you raid at these clubs. Like Peter Alexander was there. Some very prominent lawyers were there. I mean, there are other figures too, but it's all in the doco anyway.
Okay.
But again, you just had some good people with power that also were lawyers and other fields of life or have good connections and also just knew how to stand up for their rights. They were more savvy.
Yep.
They were more astute, maybe a little bit more older and wiser.
Yep.
But of course also, as everyone knows, globally, and politicians copy this and many other groups around the world copy this, that, the gay movement's very good at mobilising quick. They're very good at mobilising hard. They're very fucking good at mobilising and then getting their way off threatening. And politicians have copied their model for a long time. So this is from companies here, companies that do that, people that do this, states that do that. Just, it's a very good brotherhood, sisterhood, peoplehood in the sense that they're very quick and of course usually are very connected in many industries and walks of life or connected to many people. They're very good at globally or state level, national level at first, if a problem happens or an injustice, they're very savvy at working it out. They're very quick at having an immediate team ready to go, right? They're very good at strategy and then they're really good at mobilising and crushing hard, fast and relentlessly. So, and hats off to that. And I guess if you've been oppressed for so long and outlawed and death penalties and lose your job and all sorts of stuff that culture's had to endure over decades and decades, right, and centuries in some ways, you get kind of good at protecting yourself. You get good at copping it, so to speak, like taking a hit, but then you get very good at standing up for your rights.
For sure.
And that's something I like to witness and see firsthand as well and respect it. And I say, look, it's power of the people case. The people won. It was a human rights issue. People's human rights were reinstated and respected in the end, that maybe next time you won't violate human rights, especially on a joke. And see, I learn about that the underdog can fight, and the underdog can fight and win, and the underdog can fight a police force and a state and win.
For sure.
So it taught me a lot of those tools as well, and just don't give up hope and just don't think because you're the small person or, you're just a club or whatever, that you don't have rights and you don't have a say and that you can't change things.
And that did change things.
100% it did.
Yeah.
So I said I grew up, as you know too, so late 80s and 90s, club raids were so common. I remember so common in 88, 89, 90, 91, clubs would get raided a lot. It was a common thing. And yeah, a lot of stuff would get found and stuff. And, everyone knew the deal. Lights on, people drop their stuff, whatever. The raid comes in because a lot of underage people as well, whatever they're looking for. But that died down a bit more in the 90s. It still happened, but not as often. But club raids were a big thing in the 80s.
Big thing.
Yeah.
You've got a few props here.
Yep.
Do you want to run us through a couple of them? If people might have guessed already what they are,
Okay.
but do you want to run us through a couple of them?
Firstly, well, of course, you've seen the boys suit. So, wanting to make my human light show, as I did, and everyone knows you've seen me dance. I spin around, I jump, I weave through the whole crowd. I, just kind of love it, live it, become it. So I was very famous for the dolphin torches. So again, dolphin torch, famous Australian item, a famous Australian invention. Fitted your hand perfectly so you could swim, spin around, jump, leap, whatever. This thing wasn't going to leave my hand. It wasn't going to fly away. Of course, on occasion, I even had two strapped to my hand. And I'll tell you where it started from, right? So seeing all the lasers and the lights and the robo scans and the rest of it, I thought, well, I can make my own human light show. Because I'm dancing and jumping around everywhere and weaving through the crowd all night at the rave or the club, I may as well just add on to the lighting show. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how it started.
Yep.
These things are durable as F. I can get them wet. I can throw them. I can drop them. And when two are strapped to your hand, you're jumping around, leaping everywhere, at literally like a human robo-scan laser light show, right? So, but one of my favourite things I used to love to do, I was always a bit cheeky on the dance floor, right? And I love people, and I love people on the dance floor, and I love interacting with people. But so picture me, right? I'm not on drugs. I'm the Natural One, and most people are on drugs. And of course, I've got a famous saying called "Big Eye Surprise," especially when people are on E and all that sort of stuff, or other uppers. Your pupils, get huge, right? So they're very open. They're very sensitive to light. So what I love to do is, I'd walk around. I'd literally go up, if there's 1,000, 2,000, 500 people in the rave, I would literally go up to at least every person at one stage in the night. And I'd dance, I'd do my jump. And I'd stop for a second, have the torch down, and they'd be just dancing, doing their thing. They'd see something in front of them, and I'd go bam like that in their face. So I don't know if you know how strong a dolphin torch is. This is a little bit half-mast on the battery, but I don't know what the wattage, I can't remember, but it's a few hundred watts, whatever, right? Maybe 500 watts, possibly 1,000. They're getting 1,000-watt beam, bam, in their eyes, like it's a quick up and then down. And you just watch them just suddenly smile at going like that and whoa and whatever. But then the smile would come, right, and people would get it. But you also give them, I guess, a bit of a trigger mark or a prompt. Like in their days, in their, their trance, so to speak, or their hypnotic state, freeing themselves, losing themselves, they get this little pulse of this light. And again, the light's a strong metaphor to things as well. There was this whole bam. Because literally, you'd see, they'd be shocked because you're getting this huge flash of light that would blind everything out, and they couldn't see anything else. So that was always a fun thing to do, and something I looked forward to when right moment, right place.
For sure. And you prided yourself on being natural at some of these raves.
Yeah. So again, most of my names have been given to me, which I wear that as a badge of honour. So when I first started going out, with my brothers and all our friends, and like most raves, usually had a crew of 5, 10, 15, 20 people. That was your crew, right? And you'd all go out together as one unit. So me being didn't drink, didn't do drugs and all that sort of stuff, no Panadol, no tea, no coffee. I used to drive everyone. So I was a designated driver, and I had a station wagon, which we used to call the Afghanistan tank or the gold rave bus. Yeah. So it was a gold station wagon.
Wow.
Right, and hence that's why I love the colour gold, and I can talk about gold face later. But anyway, so there was layers when people were going out. Well, in our crew there was anyway, right? So first timers, newbies, or those that just couldn't wait to get to the rave, I drive them first. So usually I'd do 4 trips. There, back, there, back, there, back, there, back.
What?
Yeah, because the hardcores don't want to go there first.
Right. Okay.
They got more food to eat.
Right.
Right? That's just how it is, So first group, the young-sided young ones, first timers, off in the clouds, I'd be drive them. Get the second group. Maybe they wanted to top up, have a bit more of a chat, whatever, right? Third group. And then, of course, the first group, just go, nah, we want another round, whatever, right? And, of course, if everyone knows about raves too, there's a famous thing I have, what's called the car park conference. So many raves would go to the rave and not even go into the rave. Whether they didn't want a ticket, couldn't buy a ticket, or just couldn't be fucked, or were so caught up in the moment. So there's something that's always called a car park conference, right, for everyone at the raves. So most people would go to the car park to top up, have a chat, have a D&M, have a meltdown, listen to some tunes, meet some other people, get a jumper.
A deep breath.
Yeah, take a deep breath, get a jumper, take a jump off. So the thing is, so the car park conference was a famous thing, and that's where you got to meet heaps of people. And people would even go from car to car. I need some rolling papers. I need a lighter. Have you got a fit? Have you got a this? Have you got whatever, right? All sorts of stuff, right? What's that mixtape? Who's playing on it? Whatever. Make me a copy. So the thing with the car park conference was, I loved it how sometimes the party could happen in the car park. And for some people, the car park was the party.
Yep.
And before there was recoveries, it was the car park. There's a few famous people. Dougie's one of them, of course. Dougie had the toy guns to spin around wearing all the bicycle wear, the Rush Vest tops and all that, and the soccer tops and all that sort of stuff. And he had this amazing sound system that was chained up inside his car. And he had a dog, I think it was a Rottweiler, maybe, Staffy. But anyway, because he had all the mixtapes from all the DJs and all that sort of stuff, that when the rave ended or the back of the palace ended or wherever else, it'd all be at Dougie's car. So Dougie would open his car doors, put all the mixtapes in from all the DJs that played that night or other well-known DJs, and the shit would boom. It would boom, probably a good 30K system or whatever. I don't know what it was, but it was loud, right? And so that's where recovery actually started. It was people improvising in the car park with some people getting some custom systems that were powered off the car battery.
Yep.
And you'd party in the car park after the rave ended. Back then, of course, sound systems were pretty bad. So for most raves anyway, you'd probably still hear the rave music in your head for a good 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours after the rave anyway. The systems weren't that clean. You'd kind of get tinny ears. But anyway, so that's kind of like with the scene, right? And the rave thing especially, it was anything goes. It was freedom. People invented and made stuff up. And because it was the after party. So everyone went to after parties. So places like the Francis and that were early recoveries. Subway later on that Peter Raff used to run too. And there are other venues too. Or it was a friend's house. And you could make 20 new friends that night. You'd go back to strangers' houses like it was nothing. No stress, no worry. And then people would kick on all that day, maybe for another 4 days, whatever. For the raver, there was a clock, Tuesday to Sunday, and it all ended with Kate Bathgate's transmission show. So you could go out in the rave, whether it's, Fruit on a Tuesday, Sanction, Filter on a Wednesday, or Switch when it was called Switch, many nights on a Thursday, and of course the raves on the Friday, Saturday, and then all roads up to Sunday with Kate Bathgate's show in the end, and then you'd listen to that, up until midnight or 1 a.m, whatever, and then you'd crash out, and then people would start Tuesday again. So Monday and Tuesday were the downtime route. Maybe people decide to eat some food for once or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Crazy way to go, man.
Now more props?
Yeah, more props. Look, we've been going for 2 hours, but we're going to have to wrap it up soon.
Okay, I'll be really quick.
No, you don't have to be. I wish we didn't, but I get
it. So I'll draw through some props just quickly.
Yeah.
I just want to give some props to people, right?
For sure. Some props with the props.
Firstly, if you're a B-boy,
Keep it real.
You're a B-boy, keep it real. This was given to me by a very special person. They know who they are. All-time classics, the Puma Suedes, the original and ultimate breakdancing shoe. Before Adidas, Puma Suedes were king.
In the Lakers colourway.
Yeah, purple and gold. Next, these are very, very special because I'm big on my shoes because I love dancing. These are quite rare. So these are Pierre Hardy. But these are the runners used for the Tron movie for Daft Punk.
Yes.
They're really rare, really collectors, quite special.
2010, I think, maybe, about that?
Yeah, around 2010. They're pretty special because, that's neon orange, of course, and fluoro. So I first wore these when the Techno Shuffle book launch happened at XE54.
So what's the Techno book launch? Well, hang on, what? Tell us about that. Oh, there we go.
Techno Shuffle.
Right.
So Paul Fletning wrote this. I gave him a lot of assistance with this book, and there was a guiding hand along the way with it all too. And because I'm in the book as well as many other great people are. So Paul wasn't part of the rave scene here, even though he was from England when rave was really happening in England back in the late 80s, early 90s. But obviously a learned person and very good with words, and his wife also been in the rave scene for a long time. He wrote a really good book about the scene and its characters. And really, I think he did a really good job. And the book...
From an outsider looking in.
Yeah, from an outsider looking in. And it really... Yeah, and it's a bit similar to you. The bulk of the book is he's interviewed people, let them tell their story, and then put it together.
Yep.
And that's exactly what you do. So when I saw what you first did with Podcast 3000, I thought, wow, this is the coolest way to interview. I mean, I'd say lots of the famous interviewers and like, the TV ones going back for the days, and, we could talk like a Clive James or, a Parkinson or whatever, right? And there are many others, of course. But you just have this way where no one else interviews like that, where you can just draw everything out of people, and it's just the most stream of consciousness way. Mm-hmm. And again, Paul...
And we get in a zone, man. We just talk.
Yeah, and Paul did kind of a similar thing. And if you read the first... Well, in one of my sections when he first met me, he said to me, when I first met Natural One, he was talking a million miles an hour. And that's pretty much how I am and how I've always been. But there's lots of photos there of all the early club passes, the rave passes, the flyers. And he goes through quite a few decades. And then he's got photos of some of the key players and DJs. But it really goes into a lot of it. There are 3 things he didn't cover properly, though, even though I did suggest that he should.
Right.
That's my 3 Ds. For all the history, there's never enough props given to the dancers, the dealers, and the door bitches.
Uh-huh.
And I could also add the photographers / video people to that as well.
Yep.
And maybe the animators on the sideline to a degree. But the dancers play a big part of the culture, especially back in the early rave scene. Most ravers had a decent 100 to 200 record collection. They was almost as upfront about the music and as knowledgeable as DJs were. Mm-hmm. They would heckle the DJ if they weren't up to par, like the school level was there. But they were serious and walked their talk and really embraced the culture and what they loved and put their money behind it, even if they weren't DJs themselves.
Yep.
And the dancers make a party and the vibe and the energy, and they fill the room and they buy the tickets. Yeah, that's right.
That's you.
Last man standing.
Yeah.
So yeah, so again in the white overalls. So yeah,
for sure. What an interesting book. And then this also leads us to the shuffle. So everyone knows about the Melbourne Shuffle.
Melbourne Shuffle.
So let's talk about the origin of that.
Yeah. So we can talk 20 million stories here. And look, I know Richie Rich has his own story and he's entitled to, and other people have their own story. And look,
what's your take on it?
Yeah, because this is so look. I really believed it was formed from a good collection of at least 200 ravers. Mm-hmm. My honest belief that. Because there was the Running Man and the Stomp and other dances like that were already from hip house culture and that sort of culture as well. Acid House had more of the swirly sort of dancing and stuff too, more of the psychedelic sort of dancing. But again, it's like graffiti as well. With the dance floor, and I really believe the way it evolved, it has a lot to do with the music. So the shuffle was developing from trance music. So trance music's got a hard driving beat. A lot of it came from Germany. So a 4/4 beat, dum 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 dum, with not as much variance or funk like all the the black techno music was. Right, it wasn't as soulful in that sense. And then of course it had a lot of melody though. And so a lot of chord progressions, and of course, trance music, basically like pop music, is just stripped back classical music, mm-hmm. chord progressions, and song structure, right? Just watered down. And so it's very regimented, but it's very floaty and fluffy and uplifting in a lot of ways too, and has a lot of build-ups and stuff. So with the shuffle, right, it's all about the swivel of the ankle, right? That's how it started, right? And the talcum powder, of course, because one thing everyone hated from the late 80s clubbing into the 90s was, of course, ravers don't drink. They didn't drink alcohol. They didn't care for it. They didn't need to, right? So, because what makes a sticky floor? Alcohol does. Now, not a lot of raves had carpet on the floor, but one thing that was prized about rave venues was a nice polished wooden floor, a springboard wooden floor, or you rented in from your sound and lighting hire guy the false wooden floor. So they would bring in wooden flooring that sprung and stitched together to make a wooden floor, mm-hmm. Or smooth polished concrete floor, right? Carpet was the worst, and a lot of clubs had carpet floors.
They did.
Or anything that, once the alcohol got spilled, it got sticky. So the whole talcum powder thing, came from wanting to glide your feet more, but also to try and alleviate the sticky floor from the alcohol. Yep. And, again, like with, Stussy, ripping off the Chanel No. 5, and other people appropriating mainstream culture and going, fuck you, by doing a piss take, right? There was a phrase and t-shirts came out, junkie baby powder, instead of Johnson's baby powder, right? Mm-hmm. And so again, baby powder being a rave thing. So rave thing's a lot about a prepubescent infantile time. Ravers wore dummies. right? Big oversized clothes. They went back to a time in their life when things were safe and warm and easy.
Right.
They're on E. It's about the love. So
I thought the dummies was because they were chewing a lot.
yeah, but they're chewing on an E. But if you look at what ravers appropriate, right? The teddy bears, the soft toys,
right?
The fluffy stuff. So there's a lot of thing about rave culture. There's a lot of thing in the rave culture that takes you back to when you're a child. I guess when things were safe, warm, and good for most children, and anyway, right? So with a lot of that, then the baby powder again. It's another appropriation. It's baby powder, right? But again, it looks a bit like cocaine as well, or maybe a whole lot of speed too, or whatever else. So the point, there's all these fun references to it. But also, it's great making a cloud of talcum powder and watching it sell on the floor, and became this mateship thing. Said, hey, do you have a smoke? Do you have a drink? Got some baby powder? So people would pass the bottle around the room and share it. People would bring extra bottles. And so it gets that whole community of peace, love, unity, respect, that sharing and caring type environment. But yeah, so back to the dance form, right? So like with graffiti, everyone, like anyone that's truly into anything, right, will emulate and look at others, especially creating a community, a vibe, a collection of sound or movement in whatever you're doing, right? From cooking food to a painting movement to a music movement to whatever, right? You're going to be inspired by your peers or your like-minded people, and you're going to adapt and learn. You're going to get, you're going to like trigger one off on each other as well, or one up each other. And you create this breeding ground, this incubated breeding ground for things to be fertile and grow. So, of course, raving's new, techno's new, all that sort of stuff. You had the stomp and all that, and the Running Man, all that from beforehand, and the psychedelic stuff from Acid House and all that sort of stuff. So he got something uniquely Melbourne. We got a lot of trance people, and that's largely to do with people like Richie Rich and other promos that were bringing out a lot of trance artists, but Richie was really the one, and Jeff Tyler were bringing out the most trance artists, right? So you got that sort of sound and style of music. You then got, again, a hardcore underground scene that's adopted a subculture from England and Europe, and technically America as well. They've made it their own, as Melbourne people do, got hardcore about it and dedicated to it. So, and dance became like the new thing, like what graffiti was, or maybe what punk was, or, being in a band or whatever. Like, it was cool to dance. It was a thing to dance, right? And to be into music. Like, the violence kind of stopped in this circle anyway, the knife fights and the bashing up and all that sort of stuff from culture beforehand. And it was about peace, love, unity, respect. Our weapons dancing, like same as breakdancing. Breakdancing was a peaceful fight. A break battle is a battle with your arms and legs. They battle like they're fighting, but they're not. So again, same sort of ethos and carryover. So the point is, I can name many dances like Heck, Gabby, Richie Rich and stuff too, Jason Midro, Jay Snipe, myself, Sammy, Vic. There's so many others I could name. Oriel, Jana, et cetera, right? Mans. But the bottom line is, there was a whole lot of us dancing together, developing our own style. And you were prided on your own style, just like Graph. You had to have your own style. You couldn't buy it. You had to. So you had this room full of everyone doing their own styles, but also trying to do new moves, right? So from that, of course, you're seeing all that. But it was really the music, I believe, that helped form that and formed it overall. And the music, when trance music got more floaty and had the long breakdowns and all of that, and people wanted to glide more because trance music's more about gliding and being free and floating, I think that's what would have helped the side-to-side ankle swivels, like side-to-side, the row formation at first, and the arms up and down. So Sydney people didn't use their legs. They stood there in their backpacks and just used their arms a bit and didn't move much, right? Melbourne people danced, and they used every part of their body when they danced, right? So I think if you tone down the Running Man a bit, you add a bit of the Acid House sort of psychedelic style with the arms more, right? And then you got the stomp as well, and you soften all that down a bit, and then you add more of that trance element, that floaty element to it, you're going to get the shuffle. And I think from a whole lot of, 200 core dancers that were going out 5 nights a week, and the talcum powder thing, we all evolved together at the same time. What became the shuffle?
What year do you remember first hearing people call it the Melbourne Shuffle?
Okay, so again, we can look at folklore, legacy, Rupert from Sonic Animation, again, he was a good friend of mine, and he's the first to put it on the media celluloid as saying it.
Right.
And he's the first one where it goes down as the first time in the media. It was, as you know,
Did he say it on Recovery or something? Where did he say it?
No, from memory, Triple J.
Right.
Triple J, and it was on radio from memory. Don't quote me again. You can look this up. You can research this.
Yeah, I remember Sonic Animation.
With
the two.
Yeah, Rupert and Adrian. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, you know, their first gig was at Filter back in the day. You know, they were in our crew as well. They used to party with us and stuff too, heaps with many others. But you know, and they had the Octopad, you know, drum machine as well, which is like a bit of a throwback to 80s bands too, 80s synth bands. And you know, they did a different thing and stuff as well, and you know, and they broke away and you know got really big, had a lot of success and carved their niche, and you know, and again they were from the dance floor, and you know they were one of us. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, the way I view it is, I definitely would say that the shuffle was well and truly founded by '92. Mm-hmm. I really believe that. Maybe 93 as well, or January in 93, but you know, the talcum powder and all that was definitely in by 92. 91, I don't believe so. Of course, people were raving then, just starting all that, but we're talking about when a dance style is formed and concreted and become a dance style, right?
Yep.
Has to be reinforced for it to do that. So yeah, I'd definitely say 92, dare I say 93, but I'd say 92.
Right, so it's something that's been around for coming up to 4 decades.
Yeah, 4 decades, exactly. And it's funny, I played a gig once in Wales and I was there and I was dancing around and whatever, and kids had come just to see me Melbourne Shuffle.
Really?
And they were ordering the Fat Pants online off...
So the Fat Pants is a Melbourne
thing. Yeah. So there's 2 to 3 main people that were designing the Fat Pants. And again, my memories just jogged me with names. But, you know, I could mention a few names. But Renegade first. Renegade was the first rave we saw. You know, Murder did all the artwork for Renegade at the start and all that sort of business. And then, you know, there was 2 other main stores after that. 3 Concepts was one by Steve B. And then the other one who did the real Fat Pants that got famous. Again, his name's escaped me. His store's on Chapel Street. But anyway, you know, they became phenomenal in Japan, overseas in Europe, everywhere. But yeah, Fat Pants started here. It was your custom-made pants. And because later on you got the hard trance style, right? So then you got like Melbourne Shuffle Part 2. So that's when the new shuffle came in. So the new shuffle's more like stomping with shuffling. So the stomp kind of came back. It was a sequential circuit stomping, like, you know, 8 figure 8 and patterns and sliding around and stood in the glide bit with the ankle, but then it's a dum dum dum. So the music was dun 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 do 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 do. So the music got a lot faster, you know, that sort of late 90s, early 2000s era, what you call the hard step or the hard trance. So that's when the shuffle kind of evolved more. But before that, you know, the shuffle was what it was. But the seed's still there because, you know, there's videos now. I mean, I've seen videos of people in Italian car parks, right? Never went to a rave in their life, giving you instructional videos on how to shuffle. And do you know that Malaysia has a World Shuffle Day?
Really?
Yeah. So it has a World Shuffle Day. They want to try and make it an Olympic sport. Good luck. But you know, I know they were trying from around 2006, 2007 onwards. But yeah, it became a global phenomenon in its own right. And yeah, it's a dance style now. So yeah.
For sure, man. And it's something that Melbourne should be proud of, whether you're into that culture or not.
100%. But said that's what Melbourne do. We can take someone else's culture and we'll give you something back.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, it's a truly unique style of dance. And again, it's freeform. Like, I truly can't say, and anyone that says otherwise, you know, we can debate this. I'm happy to debate it with you. There's no one style of Melbourne Shuffle, and anyone that says there is, I don't really think understands the Melbourne Shuffle or wasn't there when it was getting formed. Mm-hmm. Said it was a conglomerate of a whole lot of people, all egging each other on, copying each other's style, playing it add-on, but, you know, of course, expressing themselves through the music they were listening to. Remember, different types of music make you dance differently. So it's definitely like the floaty, uplifting music that made the glide thing come into place and the floating thing come into place with the arms and the rest of it.
For sure.
And, of course, it's the drugs one. If people are on E, they feel floaty, they feel hyper, they feel elevated, they feel light.
And
right?
And that's another thing that Melbourne can be pretty proud of. We probably had the best ecstasy in the whole world for quite a while.
Yeah, precisely. Well, thanks Amsterdam and probably the rest of Europe or whatever. But yeah, look, again, wasn't my thing. Wasn't doing it. So, but again, you know, brothers and all my friends and everyone else was. But like, you know, I just, you know, yeah, the stuff was amazing. Like those microdots, the white doves. I mean, of course, there are many more, and there are other ones that came later on, like green Mitsubishis and whatever else. But yeah, in Melbourne, I mean, people gurned, and they gurned hard. So yeah,
Man, this has been such an amazing chat, and I wish
Yep.
I didn't have to wrap it up. And I'd
That's
love you.
all right.
I'd love you to come back, and we could
Yep.
talk for hours.
Yep. Yeah,
because
well,
you've got so much in you. But before we do,
Yep.
do you want to run us through these other couple of props you've got here?
yeah, okay. Yeah, so do more props here. So these are very dear to me. So ADN crew respect, SDM crew respect, of course, and other crews, MDR, etc. These are from Dabs and Myla. So third generation seed in the ADN crew. So when I came back to Melbourne after living overseas for quite a while, caught up, of course, with Method and Deviate and Ask 'em and Race and Dabs and Myla and the rest of the crew. And because I maybe met Dabs once, but heard about him, of course, through Method. Hadn't met Myla yet. Anyway, they were running the per square metre gallery in Collingwood, and they were all living there as well and the rest of it. I guess, so we had some good formative years bonding with everyone and getting to know each other, swapping styles and, seeing all their careers take off even more and elevate. And yeah, so, it was a really nice gift that they gave to me that year. So,
Those guys have gone on to do enormous stuff.
world famous. That aside, I love their ethos. I don't think there's ever been an art couple ever in the history of art. So one of the first things I learned about them was, they met at art school, the rest of it. They do every work of art together. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I can go through all of art history, but there's not a duo as an as artists. Every work is done together, with partner, husband, wife, whatever, male, female, whatever you want to call it, as one. Mm-hmm. As one.
Yeah.
So that to me is just completely unique and an amazing way to do things. And it's a testament of their love and their connection as well.
Yep.
That's what it does. They, illustrator background, graffiti background as well. So that's a really cool mix to do it. Of course, it's a big part of graph to swap to both anyway and to be a part of both.
Yep.
But they've just, they packed up, moved to LA, rest is history. I mean, they've transcended. They've done. I've gone to galleries in Switzerland. I've gone to ski resorts in weird parts of the world where they've done shows.
Yep.
And stuff.
They've done the whole entire set for the MTV Awards,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Yep, exactly.
Like, who's done that?
Yep, and they did it like Lollapalooza Festival in the early days, of course, with others. But they've done some really iconic big things, And then of course they got to meet Martha Cooper and stuff, and work with her as well and stuff too. But I mean, the list goes on and on and on what they've done, and just all the interior design stuff they did as well.
Yep.
And and building objects and all sorts of other stuff and other accessories. But
one day I'll get them on the show. Hopefully.
Yeah, you definitely have to, and you
I would
definitely
love to,
should.
yeah.
So big respect to them, big respect back for respecting me and the rest of it. So this is when the only time the Right for Gold comp came to Australia. So Right for Gold was, I don't know if it's still running now, was one of probably the most prestigious graffiti comp in the world.
Uh-huh.
So it came to Australia, and of course Melbourne got picks, and it was right down the side of Luna Park in St Kilda.
Yep.
So because ADN crew got selected as one of the crews. So Race, one of the crews in ADN as well as SDM, he made the crew caps for all of us.
Sick.
So, embroidered, old school, and he didn't know at the time, but I'd done some ADN pieces in Old English writing as well. So,
wow.
So it's got kind of a nice touch to that.
For sure.
And black's our colour, of course.
Yep.
This props to my man Method.
Who was instrumental on getting you on, to be
Yeah,
honest.
exactly. So Method was instrumental as well as Paz. So big respect to Paz as well, but Method was instrumental. So long story, but I met Method when I was Murder when I was doing a community aerosol art workshop. I used to do a lot of them for people on community-based orders or corrections orders, as well as wayward kids or whatever. So Paul came to the one in Kew with another friend of mine, Donald, who was also a writer. And we met. He painted the board. We got the board in the newspaper as well. He did an FTS piece for Fuck the System, right? And we became best friends, and the rest is history. He got into DJing as well and radio and stuff too, and music producing as well, like me and the rest of it, and travelled overseas like me, and a lot of parallels and all that business.
He's overseas right now.
Yeah. So yeah, I mentored him, just like a Trap and Des or a Sheem and Binge, many other people had mentors in the Graphland. sketching, got him, from the start, writing stuff. So his first tag was Stubbs or Stubby.
Yep, Stubby, yeah.
After VB beer cans, of course. And anyway, so I used to egg him on. He had the idea. So I said, no one's ever done a whole train in Australia, right? And they said, you should do the first whole train, right? And he always used to come to my place where he did panels or a few big missions. I'd just maybe look after some things for him or school him a little bit or whatever. So he came to my place just before he was going to do the whole train, which, they were lucky they got to have 2 days in the yard, really. Mm-hmm. Them were the days. He showed me the sketch, everything. I said, fuck, man, you're going to do it. It's awesome. And again, a bit like, I should roll call a lot of writers that went from writing to the rave scene, but just like, puzzle and murder. And there's a few others that went from graffiti to graphic design or, flyer poster design or rave design. This is a really simple design like that too and very universal. He's got the different colours of like the people of the world. Mm-hmm. Like images of people. He's got his meth piece or wild style. So being a whole train, what I respect about that whole train was they weren't just chromies or big blockbusters. They all did wild styles, multicolours, top to bottom, stuff that took a lot of work, and it wasn't just bottom down up with the lettering as well. A lot of even the streets and all that, the
streets is full on,
yeah, the streets is way full on. Jumbles, the letter moves around, Dame style and all that. So anyway, so I played a big part in inspiring Paul and motivating Paul to do it and putting the idea in his head. And of course, the boys still did what they did and did what they had to do, and they put in the yards and full effort to them and props for all of that. But this will always have a big place in my heart. And then so when we had the Wall Stories book launch, Baylor's book, again, big respect to Baylor, he was exhibiting this and we're having a chat, everyone was selling and people wanted to buy it. And Paul just turned around, I said to him and said to me, that's a bit of history and history for us as well, but history for you, I don't even know if another whole train's ever been done since in Australia. But I said, dude, you did the Holy Grail. Like you did fuck a whole car, fuck a couple of whole cars. You did a whole train and full colour top to bottom, right? So he turned to me, look, just have it. And that was a really nice moment. There's a photo I think I sent you yesterday as well of us doing the shake when he's handing it to me. And, this will always play a big place in my heart. But also the seed again. I grew his seed, which then grew onto your dabs and milers and of course, your debates and all that there too. Then they've grown onto other seeds since and I've, indoctrinated other members as well since then. But so it's just kind of a good passing of the baton moment as well.
For sure.
And a pinnacle.
For sure, man.
The last one's here too. Famous mixtape. So, of course, mixtapes, everyone used to sell them at the shops, a bit like in hip-hop culture, back of the car, hand them out, whatever. I'd do up 500 of these and just hand them out or sell them at Euphemism Records or other stores and stuff. But tapes are kind of back in at the moment. That was my first mix CD I put out called Life Cycle. So
and it's got the circle and the triangle there.
Yeah, it's got the circle and the triangle logo, the gateway exactly, which is the painting that I did for my brother as well. You got it in one, and Life Cycle for the Circle of Life, and I put that out just after he passed away. Now this too, I've had heaps of lanyards. I've had so many medallions, it's not funny, including the 3D Chasers one.
Oh, that span.
Yeah, the span around. Yeah. It was very expensive and hard to get. I've had them all, but this is probably the Holy Grail of all Holy Grail. I've been paid thousands of dollars just to get a friend in on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day at Revs for this.
Really?
But here's my Revs medallion. It probably needs an update. Guess COVID and whatever, and what wasn't living in Melbourne and stuff. But anyway, it's the Holy Grail. This has seen many good times and many missions, and helped many a person out.
Man, that's a bit of history right there.
Yep.
I want to take some photos of this stuff. I really want to, and you've got some other props. Man, yep. I feel horrible because we can't talk for 5 hours. Yep. We've done 2.5 hours.
Yep.
One day down the track, will you come back and we can talk for 5 hours?
I'd love to come back another time. One thing I must say, I feel pretty bad here. I have to show at least one rave flyer.
For sure, yeah, man. Let's go.
I didn't even show one rave flyer.
Can we do one day where we just talk about rave culture for 2 or 3 hours?
Yep. I would love to do that.
Okay, let's do that.
I got heaps of stories.
If you're keen to come back.
As I said, a lot of it will be about the dancers, the dealers, and the door bitches.
Okay.
Because they're the stories that make it.
Yep.
So, back when people had flyers for their events, and they turned them into poster art as well. So, having a rave wall was a big thing. Every raver had a rave wall.
Yep.
So, your entire wall of your bedroom or your living room or whatever was all the flyers going up, and of course for the parties coming up. So, this is War of the Worlds. So War of the Worlds, my name RA, Rebel Alliance, is part of the collective with many other promoters, including Stable and Acid Rain and Agent Mad and Frank Venuto, who went on to do Rainbow Seven Festival and stuff, and others, of course. So we had a concept called War of the Worlds. This was all Toby's idea. So Toby was a writer too. Toby used to write Creed from MSA. Used to do Pays the World's Cadet from Cadet MSA. And anyway, so War of the Worlds was the whole thing. The aliens are coming, they're coming to land. But War of the Worlds was a conglomerate against, I guess, other promoters doing it our way.
Right.
And we stepped up in a lot of ways with production and a few things. Some could argue, not argue that. And Plot, again, another writer, did the flyer design for this.
That's awesome.
So again, by writers, for writers. But this was a really symbolic thing of a whole lot of crews coming together that were doing big things or ended up doing really big things that united as one, like the Raid ethos. And this is back in 2001.
Yep.
And so united as one to put on a strong front to keep the underground going and doing it on our terms, our ways, when things were getting more watered down and more commercialised. And a lot of the flyers actually have dates for the event not being the year it was in. So one of them's 2024, another one's in 2027. So those War of the Worlds are yet to happen. So Kev, if you're watching, maybe we can do War of the Worlds. Well, 2024 is gone, but we can do the War of the Worlds 2027.
I called Kev yesterday.
Yep.
I spoke to him yesterday, so I'm
Good.
sure he'll be... Because he said he saw you a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, they saw me at the HMC gig.
Yeah.
So I came to the HMC gig, so he saw me then. I'm going to be going to the Roland TX1000 drum machine launch on Tuesday, October the 7th at Howler.
Yep.
And that's going to be a legendary breakthrough because it's every Roland drum machine put into one drum machine.
I saw that. It's analog as well.
Yeah, it's analog as well. It's a game changer.
I looked it up yesterday, man. It's retailing for like $5,000.
Yeah, I know. But how much does it cost you to buy the 10 to 12 drum machines?
I know.
If we count the 727 and the 626 and whatever else, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, but yeah, it's coin. It's expensive.
It's expensive,
So yeah.
yeah.
But I just had to at least just show people this is tactile, this is real. And if you unite, this is what you can achieve.
For sure. Ghetto, man, it's been an amazing chat, and I'm sure we could talk for another...
Yep.
I'm going to hold you to it. You're going to come back. We're going to do 3 hours of just rave culture.
3 hours of power.
3 hours of power.
I love it.
Man, it's been an amazing chat. I'm sorry we've got to wrap it up, but, man, let's do it again. This is going to be Ghetto Part 1. Ghetto Part 2 coming soon.
Peace.
Cheers, man.
1,000.